Two, one. All right, welcome to Mediocre Brothers. I'm Jordan, your host, and with me the amazing team, Corey, Edwin, and Udon. Today we'll be doing our breakdown of the new hit remake, Silent Hill 2. For this episode, we'll be going through the beginning, middle, and the end in basic chapters, along with questions and details pertaining to each level. Then finally closing with everyone's comments about the game with a final score of 1 to 10. 1 being absolutely terrible, basically the worst you possibly could, and then of course 10 being perfect. But before we do, let's go ahead and go through with our polls and see what we got here. Our polls was, what is your favorite monster in Silent Hill 2? Winner was Mannequin, Abstract Daddy, and the Bubblehead Nurse. What do y'all think about that?
So it was a 3-way tie?
Yes.
Nice.
Damn. I mean,
the Mannequin is probably, for me, is the most, unique. You fight it all the time in the game, and we'll probably come across in the comments of stuff, but it's the most dynamic. The nurse is the most iconic, but the stupid mannequin thing can go hide.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what I think makes it fun, and for also context, we purposely didn't include Pyramid Head on there because he would have just won by himself, because Pyramid Head's Pyramid Head, obviously. But yeah, I don't know, I like the mannequins because they switch up the gameplay even from really early on in the game, and I feel like them not setting off your radio safety crutch is really cool because and especially in the remake they're really good at hiding them, so it's almost a little mini game, especially if you see them and then they purposely run off and hide instead of just directly engaging you if you just see them in the hallway or something. I don't know, I find them a really fun enemy to find and then fight. I'll find them too.
The original is fixed camera, right?
Yes, it was extremely painful.
Yeah, so it makes them kind of more interesting, I think, in the remake because it's an over-the-shoulder camera, so they actually go hide from you, so you look around to try to see where the hell it went, and they're just doing the whole Kronk against the wall thing behind a plant or whatever.
Yeah. All right.
I think the worst ones were the mannequins that crawl around on the walls, but
yes, and that actually was changing quite a bit. I did not see that in the original, so seeing that for the first time after watching the remake, because that's what I did. So I played the PS2 version. Edwin as well played the PS2 version, and then Udon and Corey both played the PS5 remake. So there was a definite difference in the game as well as some similarities between the two as well.
That's what we're here to find out today.
Yes. So we'll go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Edwin.
So it's just a clarification. It's you said that the mannequins in the remake also round the walls?
In the remake, they climb up the walls. There's another enemy type of mannequin that I feel like it's slightly smaller, but it crawls around on the walls and ceiling like Spider-Man. Basically.
Yes. And
you mean the flesh lips?
No, it's different. It's different.
Like that.
That's what they're called. That's what they're called.
I know, but don't call them something else. I don't care what they
did it so sensually. You mean those
fluffy lips? And then there's the additional different nurses as well, because there's ones that have pipes that are swinging at you, and then you have ones that are I guess more covered up into a longer dress with some knives, so they're there's different types of them.
A-cup,
yeah, A-cup, C-cup, yeah, D-cup, yeah. The boss.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and the ones that are covered in goo or whatever.
Yep.
It just kind of, I think, is an indication that this is a stronger enemy. It's just there's an enemy type, and then there's the one that has shit all over them.
The one that hasn't taken a shower in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and jump into these. Again, these are going to be separated out into chapters, so we'll go ahead and start with Chapter 1, The Road to Silent Hill. So, in the beginning, James is in a bathroom, looking into the mirror, touching his face, trying to see what is it reality or if this is just something that's false, stating that Mary were you really in this town? Is something really happening? You're hearing the voice of Mary in the sounds of what was stated on a letter. You're hearing her play out through her days, talking about the tribulations and such that she's going through, promising that she would be taken to Silent Hill once again. James states to himself that he's received a letter from his wife and it can't be real because she died 3 years ago. stating it was some sort of damn disease that took her life away. So after you have gone through this part, you now exit out this bathroom. You're inside of a bathroom, leaving out, and now you're outside into a basic abandoned lake parking lot, which I've gone with some streets. Bunches of abandoned vehicles are spread out throughout this area. You then start traversing yourself down to a pathway into a forest. As you're going through, you can start to see that the music is changing from a very calming music to now a more ominous feature. Starts to feel a little bit more uncomfortable as you start going deeper and deeper. You start to see a path by the name of Toluca Lake, giving you a little shot that you're going through somewhere different. Reaching yourself, you see woodily slowing transitions into fog. Starts to get more darker, a little bit harder to see exactly where it is that you're getting to, because now you're starting to go to abandoned ruins area that's showing everything rusted, basically has not been giving any attention for quite some time. You find yourself a well, your very first checkpoint, a red book. You will go ahead and be able to save your progress and then continue on further. This is where you actually find yourself a lady around 19 years of age in a cemetery kneeling at a gravestone. James go ahead and approaches her by trying to say that he's looking for Silent Hill. With the girl, she of course finds that she seems like she's in danger. She feels very on edge. Telling her that if she's looking for someone, she herself is looking for her mama, which she says in the language tone, and then eventually switches over to mother. So you're starting to see some sort of confusion going on with the character. Eventually, they end up parting their ways. You yourself continuing further down the line, you then of course come across the Silent Hill Ranch. Ominous sounds continue to keep going and start getting a little bit more louder as you go through. You eventually start getting into a gated area where you of course go through, but it's locked. You have to find the key to be able to gain entryway to that. You then find yourself a note on the side of a building that states, went to town to get the window, fix spare keys are in the drawer. You then, of course, go through this room, finding yourself the paired keys that were inside the drawer to open yourself into the next part, which then brings you out to this open area. To the left of you is a giant boarded map board, and of course says Silent Hill. You're now in the location. So now that we've gotten to this point, we are just now entered this placement. My first question for everyone is, what was your first impression of this location? You getting your way through the forest, through the cemetery, to the point of the gate. What did you guys think of the transition and changes that were going on?
I found it incredibly weird that you go through the cemetery before anything else. So it's like, that's a weird, like, city design choice, but I guess it's fitting. I was like, hey, you're going to end up here. Anyway, have fun in Silent Hill.
Well, isn't the cemetery way like clear? I mean, at least especially in the remake, it's clearly like some kind of like back way into the town. This is not how normal people get here.
Yeah.
Well, I got very lost because I was like, this is taking a very long time to reach this town. I didn't even know if I was going the right way.
Yeah, it is kind of like, because there's no real sense of direction if you don't have the map, and I think you have to go back to your car to grab it. For the initial like map of Silent Hill, or at least to go there. Otherwise, you're just kind of walking blind. And I don't know if he tells you like, "Oh, I should get the map out of my car." Just one of those like subtle looks at camera moments. But yeah, I think this is a back way into Silent Hill because the road around Silent Hill has collapsed, so it's his only way in. And I believe that he knows of this path because he had gone to the lake or something that was like part of what him and his wife remembered of coming here. I don't know why he would vacation to Silent Hill. It doesn't strike me as a place I'd want to hit up. But
well, it's outside the demon world, right? Because
yeah,
it's stated over and over again that Silent Hill's supposed to be some kind of tourist town. So I mean,
yeah,
it's supposed to be nice. We're just not in the nice part of Silent Hill.
yeah. But I think it's a solid because it's teaching you how to play the game. It's showing you the save point. You are introduced to a character without any hostility, so that you're starting to kind of like, I guess, get eased into the nonsense that's coming. And it is kind of eerie for someone who hasn't played the game yet, even though there is no monsters in this area. So you could just you can get lost and never fight anything, and that's fine. Also, this area has a lot of or it has like a couple items for New Game Plus that you can find in there that gets you alternate endings. But it's a good like walk up, and they do a lot of really good reveals throughout this. I think as you like, make your way through something, and then the way that they expect you to have the camera. So when you get through this and see the town for the first time, it's kind of like oh, okay, I'm here.
So that kind of brings me to my next question. So again, since we just talked about ourselves from going through the beginning part, waking our way down to the cemetery, and then getting to the gate, what was your guys' thoughts on the very beginning part when you see James touching his face, looking at himself in the mirror inside the bathroom? What did that feel? What was exactly going on when you first started?
God, this bathroom's fucking nasty.
Yeah, this is a really bad truck stop.
I guess, I'll probably be saying it a lot through the game. I don't know what's going on inside his mind as you're kind of drip fed the actual story, because once again, this is a game series that I have known existed, and it's my first time playing any Silent Hill game. I know some things about Silent Hill, not a whole lot, but as far as I could compliment the acting, at least, and I don't know if they probably did use mocap for the motions and the cutscenes, and it looks really nice. I don't know what I'm supposed to meant to think about him being in a dirty bathroom with Silent Hill and whatnot until, what's revealed later, I suppose. I guess I didn't think much of it, but I thought it was just, I don't know. You go from this melancholic state of this, like, I'm assuming like truck stop, car stop, whatever. And as Edwin said, there's like it's a long walk up to the town, but it's just like a really slow transitionary from being basically in normal world to Silent Hill world. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to think about it, to tell you the truth. I didn't feel any like deeper meaning to it, but I did feel like James was clearly struggling with literal impossible states of the world, because he's like, I got a letter from my wife who I know has been dead for 3 years, but I'm here anyways, even though I know she's been dead. So like he's very conflicted in what this weird quest he's sent himself on.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into more detail as that as we go along the way. I don't want to give any spoilers on it, but just the generic sign of what Silent Hill is, and that is pretty close, is that exactly it, is that the reason that if we were to say about the first one having its connections to the other ones is basically because of a psychic in Alyssa, the name of Alyssa in the very first one, had some pretty crazy powers to where she was able to create these worlds based on her anger. So simply there was some sort of ceremony ritual that was supposed to happen that was having Alyssa being able to give birth to a demon, and of course with this not going well, she was actually herself able to create another world by the name of Silent Hill, this being another location. So Silent Hill itself is a real location. It does exist, but of course based on what you have in your demons, your dark eras, or anything that you're going on through your mind and such, you're actually going into this made-up world that she had created. You're not really going to Silent Hill, but a figment of her own area based on your own issues that you have. So it's like there's a difference in those two. So you start to see yourself going into fog, you're actually transitioning into her world, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and now jump into Chapter 2, South Vale. So now that you've made yourself through the abandoned gate, you're now going through this giant abandoned city. You're seeing all these huge walls covered in sheets. James is confused by the sights of what he's seeing. You're being able to pull out your map and be able to see as you're traversing through the levels. You're seeing that you're able to mark off any areas that you can't go into, or being able to go into locations you see doors have been opened. So there's a nice new feature that you can use with that. Same as the original, but it definitely looked a lot better that you're whipping out an actual folded up map versus in the original you're just looking at a screen. So there was a little bit of difference there. So you start exploring the streets. James start to see a faint silhouette-like form walking in the distance. James trying to get his attention, but of course it's not turning away. It continues to walk through deeper into the fog. He starts to follow this image, or this object, if you will, down and down through the roads until he finds himself a location through fences, and you start hearing yourself these noises like gargling sounds. He sees a blood trail that leads him slightly under a garage door. He then, of course, goes underneath it, finds himself this static radio that's on a counter, As he turns on this radio, he starts to hear that there's static coming out. From behind him, you can see this image of this creature coming up from behind him. You now see your very first lying figure. An object item, a monster with no arms, covered in complete skin as if it's in some sort of tangled up suit. It has a slit down its chest to where it's creating some sort of croaking noise. You then, of course, are trying to defend yourself by ripping off a 2x4 off of the window, using that as your weapon against the lying figure. Once you, of course, have defeated it, you then, of course, say to yourself, is this what I saw in the fog? Is this obviously is not human? What is this? You then, of course, leave the room, finding yourself that you're going across into seeing a dead body that's on the street. You find this thing called Needy's Bar matches that helps give you the idea scent that you need to go to this location. You then, of course, go to these separate levels that you go within the Groovy Music Store, the Green Pharmacy, an apartment building where you find your pieces to go along the way. Then, of course, you find yourself another dead body when you pick up a set of keys to the Woodside apartment. So, with this being that we've gotten to this point, inside of the South Vale, what did you guys think about the layout feature? How everything, you're seeing all the abandoned structures and everything. What did that look like to you? Did it look good? Was there any sort of questions that you guys think of that could be done different? What did you think about it?
Well, I'm definitely not escaping.
Yeah. I think I like the interactive map feature. It definitely, the funny thing about it, I think the meme of Silent Hill 2 is that you check your map a lot. And I know by the time I finish the game, they actually they track how many times you check the map. So my number was like 800 something. But you're always looking because like when you see something or whatever, James will write it down in the remake. Like you see him pull out a pen and like write on the map. So it's like, oh, well, what did he just write? So then I'm going to check it again. And then like he'll circle stuff down and write a clue. Like if you saw like a puzzle, like there's a jukebox here. So it's like, okay, I'm looking for stuff for that jukebox. And he circled where it's at so I remember where to go. And he writes down which doors you can't access, which doors are locked. And if you found the object of interest, he'll cross it off so you don't go looking there anymore, just in case you forget. Because I always forgot that you can inspect items that you find or objects of interest. Like I never did that in the entire game. I forget about combining things, so it's just like, oh, I'll dip this in paint or whatever stupid thing I have to do. But overall, I like the map. I think the layout of the town is pretty close to the original. There might be like added buildings or stuff. I know there's like added puzzles, but the remake looks really good. I know there's mods to remove the fog so that you can kind of like see the town more, but I mean that kind of defeats the purpose of what it is,
that to me would be a really bad feature to have. But anyways, so I mean, is that you actually now came across the lying figure in the distance in the fog? I mean, for me, when I was seeing it, and obviously it's probably different within his eyes when he was seeing it, but I saw a weird-looking creature in the distance, and yet he's trying to get his attention. What did you guys think about him trying to call out to it and then continue following it? Did you guys feel like you would have done something different, or if it was in real life, per se?
If I saw something even vaguely resembling a body in a shitty body bag wearing go-go boots, like even if I thought that was only a 1% chance of what I just fucking looked at, I would have just been like, nah, I'm out of here, instead of crawling underneath into like this dank hole into a shed chasing after whatever this fucking monstrosity was. Like, I'm like, James, my guy, like, I know you've already accepted what you're doing is like actually retarded, but like, come on now, man. There's easier ways to kill yourself.
He's so dedicated, and it's like climbing into a pen full of bears just because he's like, are you sure there's bears in there? It's like, I shouldn't.
Yeah, beware of tigers. He goes in.
Leave it alone, dude.
I don't know how it is in the original, but in the remake, and also I apologize, I might sound a bit weird and I'm still a bit under the weather because fucking COVID came in and ruined all my fucking plans for everything this weekend. But anyways, in the remake, it's like he looks down in the shed. There's clearly like this giant blood smear or shit leading under there, and he's just like, I'm a crawl in that, and I'm just like, dude, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, Silent Hill should be terrified of James.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this man is willing to go like to the greatest lengths to find out what if his wife is dead.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, I know that. I know that in the remake, I mean, in the original, you're actually going back in this corner against this gated fence, and there's like this keep out kind
Like a
of boarding,
construction zone.
construction zone that you climb through. Which he just had to do it, and he just climbs through, and then of course, then you see it get up, just kind of like the same thing in the shed. But this one, it's just against a gate in this little spot that he's kind of blocked in, so he just rips off a piece of wood off of that caution sign thing to beat the hell out of it with it. But yeah, it's they're
Maybe
kind of
James,
similar.
like, James is just a cryptid that ignores warning signs.
I can't stop me. I can't read.
I hear no bell.
It's the thing that's weird though is like, because this is your first introduction to combat, and you're terrified of whatever this weird squiggly monster guy is, and he's trying to puke on you, and you're trying to beat him to death with a board, and it's like very visceral and just like a struggle, and it's oh man, that was crazy. Like, the game is about like avoiding combat and stuff, but in the remake, the combat's fun.
Yeah.
Like, you have this dodge sidestep thing, so every time you get in a fight, you're like dancing with an enemy, and you're just wailing on him, and it's very dramatic, and the impact is really good, and it's kind of reminiscent of Isaac Clarke stomping the hell out of things. So
Oh yeah.
it's like, oh, cool. Thanks for introducing me to this, because now I'm going to go run at every one of them that I find, because I want to fight it.
And I
Yeah,
did
exactly.
and I did hear, which was also too when I was watching the person play the game too, when they're doing the battling, you can definitely see that there's a lot more emotion involved in the battle. So like, for instance, when he's curb stomping the hell out of that thing, he's just grunting and he's like out of breath stomping the hell out of it. So you're kind of like, you have that feel like you're there with him, which is pretty crazy. Because I'm assuming, if I'm going to ask that question to Edwin, how did you feel about the battling mechanics inside, being it that you're played with the PS2 version?
Well, for one, I have absolutely no idea why he decided to chase something into the very obvious, ominous fog that's covering the entire town. It was like, when there's literally bloodstains all over the road, it's ridiculous. But like, the whole time I was chasing that thing, it was like, once I actually got to it, I was like, I had to figure out all the controls, because half the controls don't work unless you're carrying a weapon. So I didn't know how to attack, because it was like, the game doesn't tell you like exactly how to play. I had to figure out myself. So it's like, I'm pressing all the buttons. It was like, you have to hold the right R2 in order to like ready your weapon, and then you have to press circle in order to attack. But it's like, and then that's pretty much how the whole game goes. There's like heavy weapons that you can't like move with while you're in that stance, and then like other weapons that you can. But it's like, it didn't tell me the entire game that you could curb stomp to kill them. So literally every single fight I got into lasted for like 20 to 30 seconds, depending on how strong that enemy was. So that fight took, because it was my first fight, it took me like almost a minute, because I was trying to survive and not take damage. But it was very annoying, because like, I'm pretty sure the ones who played the remake actually got a tutorial. Meanwhile, I was left with nothing, just pressing random buttons to see what happens. I did not use the sidestep at all, because I don't know.
It kind of was pointless.
Everything.
Yeah, it was kind of pointless, because even if you tried to sidestep, you'd still get hit. It's kind of like, almost like the enemy had like an auto lock on you. So it's like, you had to. The only way it was going to be effective is if you step back. But even then, if they're like puking on you or whatever, you'd still get hit. Like, it was kind of hard to avoid damage in the original, by what I was seeing or experiencing.
Yeah, the original is a little more claustrophobic too, so you don't have a lot of area to move around in, and that goes for basically like the entirety. Like, the difference in areas, like spatial level, that layout is dramatically different between the two. And to preface, Angela, the one that you meet in the graveyard, she's like, "It's dangerous in there." To which James responds, "I don't care."
Well, here's the thing. I think that I actually like that response, because as Edwin said, and as we've already addressed, half the things he's doing is fucking stupid. But like, he's already accepted that whatever this quest he's going on doesn't make sense from the
crazy.
get-go.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's already accepted what he's doing is crazy. So I'm like, him doing dumb shit, I'm actually kind of okay with, because he's literally just turned to the camera and said, "I'm about to do, like, hey, watch this. I'm gonna do some dumb shit." It's like,
about to die, we salute you.
this is like literally, this is James and this is Jackass. I'm gonna fucking, like, he knows he's gonna do something really stupid.
Hi, I'm James. I'm in Silent Hill, and this is Jackass.
This is Jackass. And he, like, elbow drops fucking Pyramid Head.
Yeah.
So
But it's like
go ahead.
well, and like logically, it's just like is like he received a letter. It was like, oh, it's from my wife. It has her handwriting. It was like, dude, it could have been like some prank, or like someone who like got into her personal information or something.
One hell of a
you
prank.
Don't just I was like, you don't go to just some like random city out in the outskirts, and then it's like, oh, it's covered in fog and there's monsters everywhere. I'll accept this.
This is a very elaborate prank. He's like, all right, guys. All right.
Yeah, like I said, though, especially when we get more into the story, like he's crazy. He's just like, he does crazy shit. This isn't. I would hold.
Oh, he's only following it because he's pretty much looking for a place to die.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different reasonings for James to be doing this. Like, I don't hold James to the same logical through line when it comes to thinking as I would hold Chris or Jill from Resident Evil, because they're not crazy. They're just stuck in a really fucked up situation. Well, James is clearly really messed up in the head, and he's, like I said, he literally looks at the camera and says, "My wife's dead. I have a letter from my wife. I'm gonna go find my wife." It's like, yeah. Oh, okay.
She died 3 years ago. She called me yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's all. That's about all I need to know.
Yeah. So, granted, I still think crawling in, bloody crawl spaces into tight sheds with monsters is still kind of ridiculous. But, like, him accepting going on this nearly impossible quest, I'm like, yeah, I could see you doing that, because you've already said, yeah, this is stupid, but whatever. Yeah. As far as the combat goes, I'm kind of with Corey. The remake combat's really fun. I especially remember, we're going to get into the apartments in a little bit. There's like a section in there that has a bunch of a lot of mannequins you got to fight, and I was really hyped up in that one section, because fortunately for us, dodging in the remake is useful, because you get iframe.
Like Dark Souls rolling.
Kinda, you definitely get iframes in the remake, and so I'm ducking, weaving, taking on like 2 or 3 at once. I'm just like, oh, happy feet, wombo combo. That ain't Falco. I'm just like, it's too much fun. I love this.
You get James in Smash Brothers, please.
Yeah, exactly.
So then
You guys have had fun.
Yeah.
I did have fun.
So this says, since the lying figure is the very first thing that you come across, what was your guys' thoughts on that design? So I know that there's a lot of different monsters out, like you were talking about with Resident Evil and such. This one to me was very odd looking, and it was just something very different. I was just wanting to get everyone's take on what they thought of this.
Dude, what the fuck? What the fuck is those fucking things? Because I said this before, but like, for like a ground zero enemy, holy shit, that's a crazy ass design for what I'm going to assume is the equivalent of the grunt enemy for the rest of the game. Because I mean, at least in Resident Evil, like, you just, like, a zombie's a zombie, it's like, all right, cool, zombie. It's like, all right, zombie dogs, we're getting a little crazier. It's like, oh, now we got the crawlers or whatever, the stalker, the crab frog things, I forget their name. Hunters, yeah, there we go. Like, you gradually get up there, but it's like, first enemy, body bag, go-go boot, projectile vomiting ass leech crawling across the, like, what the fuck? I was like, what am I even looking at? Especially because, again, I haven't played Silent Hill, so I encountered it, and I'm like, oh, it has no arms. Like, it's a floppy little fucking body bag with legs. And I'm like, what's it gonna do? Headbutt me? And it just looks at me and it's like, bleh. I'm just like, oh god, like, what the fuck? Like, these things puke on you? Great. And then, of course, they're really unsettling when I first encountered the one in the streets, when it's like Roomba vacuuming the fucking streets, like crawling across the ground. Yeah. I was like, what the hell, man?
That was hilarious.
That's the jump scare one. I think that's like the first jump scare in the game, is like there's one that crawls out from underneath a truck, and it's just like,
it got me.
Erratic movement. It's like every monster design in the game in general is kind of like unsettling, because they're kind of human, but not all the way. So it's just like, what
They're
the
like
hell am I
tortured
looking at?
human. They're like fucking like Hellraiser creature, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, if you haven't played Silent Hill 1, yeah, you're kind of like walking in blind on that. Or like if you haven't really interacted with any of the Silent Hills, you're walking in blind on the monster design. So you're just kind of like, oh God, they're just very torturous. Like they're just I think they're all designed off of like an emotion or like a pain or anger, because they're struggling basically the whole time. But I always kept joking about it, because when you come across the ones that are covered in like the black ooze or whatever, it just kind of looks like a guy stuck in a trash bag. And so we just kept joking about how this guy's like, hey man, get me out of here. And you're like, whoa, back up.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, you're dirty. That's gross. Yeah, no, I always, especially the one that was crawling across the ground. Every time I came across it, I was like, oh, look, there's the Roomba one. Because look, he's just sucking up all the dirt on the road.
He's cleaning up the streets.
Yeah, he's cleaning up the streets. And guys, so me and my friend me and my friend Tim were trying to play through the game, and then, like I said, I came down. So at some point, my knowledge of the game is going to run out, because unfortunately, I was not able to finish the game. But yeah, at least for that part, I was like, damn, like this is kind of crazy enemy design already off the bat. Like I'm already liking where it's going, because horror games have such freedom in what they could do, because I feel like the artists all the time just kind of look at each other. It's like, all right, what kind of fucked up shit can we do with this?
It makes me sad.
Yeah, it's like how many nightmares can I inflict on poor unsuspecting people?
No, I'm very scared of fleshy Roombas.
Yeah, fleshy
I would be.
body bag puking Roombas. Yeah, I'd be terrified of that too.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started with Chapter 3, the Woodside Apartment. So now that you've gotten yourself the key to enter inside the building, you then, of course, go up a flight of stairs. This is when you, of course, go into a room where you see a box with 5 individual holes that are basically for something of some sort of coins that could possibly be inserted into them. You're finding out that there's some sort of riddle telling you about what they can be, basically on what they represent. You then, of course, find yourself going into another room where you're finding handgun ammo. Multiple floors, you find yourself the room flashlight, and inside the room with the flashlight, you encounter your very first mannequin. A creature made up of basically plastic parts, the bottom legs also being at the top torso, both sides, attacks you with its legs, moving closer to you. Very quick, can stand still, even with the light flashing on them. They basically stand put until you get close enough to them where they can basically come out and attack you. So as you're going through these separate levels, you're starting to see the tiles are worn out, trash bags scattered. It's an abandoned area, looks very unhandled, very well not taken care of. Going through multiple floors with James, and you start to see that you're going up to the top floor. You there see there is a gate there with a key laying on the floor. James crawls down and tries to reach out for the key, and of course, a girl comes out, steps on his hand, kicks the keys, and runs off.
Of course, typical.
James is not upset in any way. He just says, hey, and then, of course, gets back up, and then, of course, he continues on his trip. Then you, of course, come across these cupboards where you can be able to place in these golden apples to unlock them. This, of course, gives you the output of being able to receive new items as you're going throughout the level. And then, of course, you now are gaining entry to the second floor. There's a gated fence there on the other side where you encounter the Pyramid Head. He does not move. He stares at you in a dark red light form and stares at you. You, of course, look at him, confused, enter another room where you're seeing yourself a red grocery cart. You find the handgun. A handgun which you have with multiple rounds that you have received throughout the game. You now have this with you as you're going through. Going and leaving through other rooms, you hear a scream. A dead body in front of a TV. You, of course, walk to the side and notice that there is a body sitting in front of the TV with a handkerchief covering the face. You, of course, leave the room, going outside, and then, of course, you start to see scratches on these walls in a room with hidden messages. Once you found out the puzzle, you then, of course, acquire the coin of the man. Going to the third floor, you are now hearing a puking sound. Some sort of room that you go into, that there is a dead body that's in a refrigerator, beaten hell, covered in blood. You see a man puking in a toilet. When you go, of course, James confronts the man. He is immediately denying the murder of exchange of what happened, saying that this is not him. He did not do this. It was like that when he got there. He found it like that. Character's name is Eddie, which is what he informs you of. You then, of course, talking about that you're looking for someone, you're trying to find your way. He is telling that you and him should probably leave Silent Hill to get out of there. He, of course, says, no, I need to find my wife. You then, of course, leave that room, where you then, of course, see a swimming pool. 3 creatures, the lying figures, that are basically guarding this baby carriage. Once you have defeated the 3 creatures, you, of course, acquire the snake coin, the second of the 3. Then you're going to be able to find yourself a 6-pack of soda, which you will drop down a trash chute, which will then give you the final coin of the woman. Returning back to the locked drawer, you apply these 3 coins in the correct manner that unlocks the apartment to the 201. The 201 key is what then gets you to the room where you're going to see a very disturbing feature. I won't get into it too much, but James walks into the room and sees a mannequin falling to the floor. He, of course, sees the Pyramid Head having very explicit, interactions with
He's banging the mannequin.
he's going to town on a 2-way.
Or which end?
Yeah, exactly. He's heading it up with 2 mannequins. James is in terror, goes in and hides inside the closet. The Pyramid Head leaves the scene and then, of course, walks up to the closet, staring at James. James pulls out his gun and fires it at Pyramid Head, bouncing off and ricocheting, doing no damage. The Pyramid leaves and walks away, grabbing one of the mannequins off the floor and taking it with him. You find your way through the door, leading to a sudden open cliff, to another building. This is making your way through the window to the Blue Creek Apartments. So the very first question I have for everyone is, what was your thoughts on the Pyramid Head design?
Very cool. Creepy.
He's very iconic. I mean, he's probably one of the more recognizable characters from like the PS2 era. I think everybody knows what he is, even if they don't know where he's from.
Yeah, because I mean, everyone like Pyramid Heads is iconic. He's like I don't know. I don't think he matches. I mean, I would say Pyramid Head might be more iconic than something like the Nemesis from Resident Evil or something like that, like a very iconic villain. I don't think I ever found him creepy, to be honest with you. He's just kind of a shirtless guy in a butcher's apron with a giant metal thing on his head and a giant machete. And just like, you could have been Cloud Strife on a bad day, my guy. Like,
yeah.
So I'm like, kind of like how I would explain like a xenomorph. Like, yes, he's scary, quote unquote, in quotation marks. I know he can fuck me up, but it's like, I feel like uncomfortable fear when I look at like the fucking mannequins and the other guys, fucking the bag people, and that's like creepy and unsettling. Pyramid Head, I'm not unsettled by. I'm just like, oh god, he's gonna hit me with a fucking machete the size of me.
More ominous and imposing than like creepy.
Yeah, like
his weapon too is also. I've seen plenty of like memes where they, it's like, can you guess every character's weapon? And like his sword does come up in some of those where it's like that's how common like he is in like the gamer space, is people could pinpoint his blade out of a group of character like weapons, like the Buster Sword or like the Plasma Sword from Halo and stuff. It's kind of interesting because he's not even a character that's from like an action game like those. It's just this weird psychological horror game that has a character that people kind of gravitated towards. He's almost like a mascot for Hot Topic.
Yeah. To go back to, I just want to touch on a few things during that sequence that James did that I thought was silly. When he's initially reaching through those bars to get those keys, and he is, again, in the remake, he is like really straining to get those keys. I'm like, dude, just fucking use your board. Scrape it across with your board. What are you doing?
That's a fair point.
It's like, why are you just fucking stretching all the way in there? Just use the board that you have in your pants.
He's reaching from the middle of the game instead of from like right in front of the keys. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, it's like you don't want the fucking key, and then the fucking girl comes out of nowhere like an asshole, and it's like, wow, you better be a ghost because I'm gonna make you one when I find you, you fucking little asshole.
Swiper no swiping, and he's just like, oh man, and leaves.
Yeah, he's like slightly disappointed. It's like, god damn it, now I have to go through some more demons to get to the keys.
I guess I'll just pound through the walls of these apartment buildings and make my way through it like some sort of monster.
Yeah, you can break down fucking walls, but doors with a cardboard box in front of it. He's like, can't do anything about that. The other thing was, Corey says it was there. I didn't see it unless they moved it to an optional scene, which I don't think it's an optional scene in the original, but I never saw Pyramid Head fucking the mannequins. Corey says that it's in the remake. I never saw it. I'm aware of the scene because it's, fucked up. But I also remember in the remake that when James hides in the closet and Pyramid Head is like standing in front of it, and James pulls out his pistol and aims directly at the giant metal helmet that he's wearing. And I'm just like, what are you doing? And he fires like 3 times, and Pyramid Head just walks away. I'm like, you are so lucky he doesn't give a flying fuck about you.
Like, he left because he's like, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah, he's like, you're not even worth killing because I have an exposed chest, but you shot me in the only armored part of my body.
Okay, so since you guys are talking about the Pyramid Head, so now that you were getting to that point, what did you think about the mannequins when you first saw those?
Well, first of all, I didn't even realize they were like made out of plastic. I thought they were like
legs sewn together.
Legs sewn together on top and bottom. And I was like, again, it was not as bad as the other ones, but I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? And then when I first saw one and it didn't aggro to me, it just kind of ran away. I thought the AI was bugging out, but no, it went to hide. So when I found it, I'm like, where the fuck did it go? And like I said, in the remake, they hide really, really well. They could like contort into like the tiniest little corner. Of course, you could still find them. But
yeah, they'll like crouch down and fold behind stuff, or like line up against like behind a door or something, and they're quick. So
yeah,
like their movements are erratic. They actually like will fuck with you. And I don't know if I can't remember because it's been years since I played the original, all the way through. They can jump on you and trap you in like a QTE in the remake.
I don't think. Yeah, that does a lot of damage. You learn to avoid that real fucking fast.
Yeah,
but they can also, unlike the body bag people, these ones have move. They got schmoves. They can fucking dodge you swinging your board at them. So the first time when you're fighting them, it developed into a fucking art of just like 1, 2, swing, dodge, 1, 2, swing, dodge, because you can't get greedy. Because I know they'll hit you with the fast mannequin falcon punch. They'll give you the old 1, 2. But they were much more fun to fight than the body bag guys. Because, I mean, gross as they are, the body bag guys, they're just like, all right, wait for you to puke, walk around, hit you a couple times, wait for you to puke, walk around, hit you a few times. Like, they're really not that bad.
Yeah, the body bags always seem to puke on the third swing, so if you're just aggressive, then they're going to kill you anyways, or at least hurt you a lot before you, like, make you waste your heals, basically. So, and since they're ranged, you're kind of just, like, annoyed by them at that point.
But they are, in a few sections, because of the environment, they are significantly more dangerous in the apartments, because out in the middle of Silent Hill you have lots of space to walk around them so the player can get used to them. You have it a little bit in the smaller apartments where it was with the medicine thing when you're solving that first little puzzle involving the record player. But in the apartments, because their greatest attack is the puke, and the puke goes in a really long, like, it has some range, really long straight line. But since you're in an apartment with lots of hallways, that's the only shape they have, so maneuvering around them gets significantly more difficult. And I don't know when we get it, but at some point in the apartments we do obtain our first gun, because up until this point we've only had the board with nails in it. And that's like an ideal place to use that, because if I saw one of the pukey guys, one of the body bag guys at the long end of a hallway, I'm like, I'm not even going to chance like trying to strafe around this thing in this narrow hallway. I'm just going to use my gun and hit them from afar. So they're a bit more dangerous inside, but anytime you encounter them outside, they're not nearly as bad.
So how did you guys feel about when you got the handgun? How did that feel in comparison to that 2x4 spike board that you were using? Was there a lot more difference? Like, did it feel better, or did it feel like it was just a waste of time?
I spent like 5 minutes trying to pick up that damn thing because I could see it, but there was no indication that said James could not see it. So it's just like I had to look it up. I was like, why can't I pick up the handgun from the shopping cart? I was like, you need a light. It's on the second floor that I accidentally skipped because I didn't go to the second floor at all. I went immediately to the third floor, and then it's like I found the handgun and had to figure out. It was like, all right, it's the light's on the second floor. I'll go grab it. and then I'll go get the handguns. But it's like you don't start. I think you only start with like one clip, and I think I wasted it all like one enemy because no, I didn't waste it on all one enemy. It was like I assumed that the gun was stronger than it really seemed like. So literally every single person, or I guess enemy in the entire apartment complex, I just beat the hell down with the wooden plank because like I'm gonna save these bullets for something worse than just a flesh body.
Like late game, the handgun becomes like more of something that I ended up using often because I forget to use it and I would stockpile and I have like 150 rounds at some points where I was like, oh, I'll just shoot everybody. What they try to do with that is like give you an option for range combat, but they dumb the damage down and you do more damage with the pipe. But it starts to feel weird because I feel like the enemies like health changes as the game goes, where it's just like some enemies will die in 4 shots, some enemies will die in like 9 shots, and so like
bro, what game did you play? It sounds a lot more fair than what the hell I played.
Yeah, well it was more fun playing with the handgun in this one because of the over the shoulder. Like it plays like RE4, where like I can move and shoot and whatever, and I have a lot more control rather than just the fixed camera angle and you're hoping that you're hitting the target. Well, but the enemies move a lot, so you're aiming at them and they're doing like their little shuffle, and so sometimes they'll just like trip over their own feet and move, and then you fire at nothing.
Well, it's like the problem is it's the same as the similar controls to the first Resident Evil, granted possibly better considering it's like from the original Resident Evil. But like the thing about the handgun is like throughout the entire game, it took 3 to 4 or 5 bullets for it to knock them down. It would not kill them, but if you stop shooting at them while they're down, they just shimmy all over the ground and bump into you, still doing damage. And then they just like run across the hall. You had to go chase them down. Because once they're crawling around, it's like significantly harder to actually hit them. But if you hit them at least once or twice, then they'll stop moving and get up, and then you have to put in like a couple more bullets to kill them. It takes at least an entire clip to down one of them with just a handgun. So that is the reason why I just beat all of them with the plank instead, because it was completely pointless. But with the plank, it's very easy to stun lock them until they're dead, but it's a lot harder when there's more than one enemy, because then they'll immediately interrupt you. And for whatever reason, James just cannot stay on one target if there's more than one. If one of them is down and then the other enemy is close enough, he'll automatically target the other enemy, and then instead of finishing off the first one. So it's incredibly annoying.
And so, okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say on the combat, because what was the difference between using like the melee and the gun is that like obviously the gun is a form of resource consumption for your ammunition, but also as Corey says, the game is actually pretty generous with the amount of rounds it gives you. And I'm pretty sure me and Corey are playing on the same difficulty, just basic bitch medium all the way through the board. And I have a ton of ammunition. I only use it in really specific parts where I figure that it's going to be harder to, like I said, to if I saw a body bag or whatever, like it's like, oh, it'd be easier for me to, like, what's the risk versus reward? Am I going to get hurt doing this? High chance of it or not? But they give you a lot of ammunition, and unlike Resident Evil, where like the knife is like nearly unusable, so like the pistol is your main weapon, like the pipe and the wooden board are like super usable throughout the entire game. Like I would still go for that first most of the time before resorting to my gun, which is a bit strange. I would have thought they would have made the gun resource a lot more scarce, since melee combat is like viable and pretty much unlimited. All it does is put you technically in more of a vulnerable position to get hurt. But on top of that, what Corey said about I agree with him. It's like some of the enemies have like upgraded versions later in the game, but even the same enemy, like if I saw 2 body bags next to each other. One might take 3 headshots, and the other one might take 5, and it's just kind of inconsistent. And sometimes I think the rework actually has hit registration issues because I swear to God I am pointing this gun with the crosshair with no way in hell this is going to miss, and it still misses, or it just doesn't hit reg entirely. So there's a bit issues with that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong and I just got really bad luck on the fucking spread, and every time that happened, it was a legitimate miss. But it really seemed like half the time it was just like sometimes they ignored being shot. It was kind of silly.
Yeah. The board, like the melee combat, because James doesn't have any cooldowns on swings. So it's kind of like you can fight until they're dead. There isn't like I need to take a breather and wait for a stamina bar thing to build up. And he also has kind of like a targeting, like an auto targeting. So if you swing your weapon, like he kind of moves towards the enemy that you're aiming at, and you kind of get in this dance where like when you sidestep, like he'll actually sidestep around it and not just to the side. But sometimes if you're fighting more than one enemy, that gets kind of broken, and you might sidestep and the guy moves behind you. But like there's no auto targeting when you're aiming. But so like the melee stuff is again, it makes it really fun. But the handgun, I kind of just was like, I'm going to put this in my pocket until I have a ton of rounds.
Yes. And so since we basically gone through those, we're now going to be jumping on to Chapter 4, the Blue Creek Apartments. So now that you have now covered over to the next apartment building, you're now looking over.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Did anyone else feel silly with the puzzle with the 3 coins, or am I the only one that read that wrong? Because I remember with when you had those 3 coins, you have the puzzle itself. You have to like use the 3 coins in 5 spaces in this like shelf thing, and coming off of Resident Evil again. I'm just going to keep comparing it to Resident Evil because that's the only other survival horror I've played in recent memory. When I see 5 holes, I think I'm supposed to put 5 things in 5 holes. I mean, yeah. I know in hindsight, I was just being stupid because the literal hint poem tells you like 3 coins, tell a story over 5 spaces or something like that. But I had the 3 coins and I had 5 spaces, so I was like, oh, I need to find 2 other things, and I wasted like another like 20 to 30 minutes walking around till I came back and read it again. And I'm like, oh, I'm okay, I get it. Like, did anyone else have trouble with that, or is that just me?
I had a similar thought, but
yeah,
it was like I like analyzed what I did and where I found these coins. It was like I have to be reading this wrong because it's like I went everywhere. There's not anywhere else. This is before I started using a guide for this game, because I started using a guide like halfway through. But like this puzzle I had to do entirely by myself. But like I had to like deduce like where I went and how many coins I have. It's like it seems like I have enough coins for this puzzle, but I do see 5, but it's like I don't really have anywhere else, so I tried the puzzle anyway. But the significant difference between the original and remake is because I was watching Corey play through this part, and he had to flip the coins over, and he had to do like 3 different versions of the same puzzle. But I only had 1 puzzle, and then I didn't have to flip the coins at all. So it's like I just had to place it in the right spots, and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the puzzles and stuff were kind of straightforward, but like I think there was just one instance when I was playing that I pulled up a guide and I was like, "What the hell am I supposed to do right now?" And then it's just like, it was the I didn't realize I can combine an item, because I think we'll see it in the next area where you make the weird bird weight thing, and I was like, I got the thing. How come I can't put it here? And it's like, oh, okay, fine. I guess. One other thing I wanted to bring up for this apartment is they completely, like, there's obviously overhauls on the character layouts. Like Angela's a little different. They made her a little more like, I guess youthful looking, like, chubbier cheeks or whatever. But like Eddie's design is so different than the original, and he's just so weird looking.
The original, he looks like the guy from Bully. The game.
To me, he just looked like fucking
like a frat guy.
Well, no, it looked like Michael's kid from Grand Theft Auto 5, fucking Jimmy.
Oh yeah,
It's like I saw his original, but I kind of agree because when I was playing with Tim, Tim had literally the same thought. And he's like, I don't really like how he looks now. And he showed me a picture of how he used to look in the old games. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I kind of think this remake is not a glow up. Granted, I'm sure that they were trying to make him look more gross because, as we'll learn later, he's not a great person. So you're not supposed to be endeared to him very much. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I could have felt that way with the old design too. But
yeah, he's kind of built like Grimace.
like Grimace. Especially later, God, and I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead. Who the fuck eats ice cream out of a giant barrel with their hands? Like, that is just nasty.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, in the
original remake. Pizza.
Yeah, in the remake.
Yeah, where the fuck did he find that?
In the remake, they're in a movie theater, and he has this giant tub of like half melted ice cream that he's just. By the way, they chose like strawberry because it almost looks like blood or something, because you could have been like, are you just eating like human meat out of a bucket or something? But he's just like sloppily, disgustingly like grabbing handfuls of half melted ice cream with his hands and like licking his fingers and like lapping it up like a disgusting animal. I'm like, God, you're fucking gross. Yeah. Like, are you trying to like me? Not just like women, like everyone. Nobody likes you. You're disgusting.
Maybe if you just cut that shit out, you'd have some friends.
You probably stop getting bullied if you weren't such a fat fuck.
Yeah, he's banned from Olive Garden for eating spaghetti with his hands.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, sorry. I just wanted to back up. I don't like Eddie either. He's gross.
All right, so again, you've now gone into the Blue Creek's apartment. Visuals are showing lots of unmaintained paint chippings, drapes that are covered in filth. You start then, of course, going through with a new feature to where you can use your weapon, your 2x4, to break cracks in the wall to be able to get new entryways in further into the apartment. Once you start going through with the crack in the wall and moving over, you then go into a room where it shows an old-styled radio that's hanging from a ceiling and some sort of cage, playing some sort of romantic music, building up with static and eventually shutting off. You, of course, go through this next room where you see yourself a grandfather clock. There is a separation of parts that are being needed, the minute hand, the hour hand, the seconds. There's all being based on Henry, Marl, I can't remember the middle name for minute, and then seconds for Scott. So you're able to find these in different locations without the level and placing them onside the grandfather clock to gain entryway to another place. You will find yourself a scale where you are going to be placing a pigeon figurine and a swan figurine, which will then, of course, make the weight of the scale, having the figurines crack and break, giving you the winged's key. James enters a room with the girl from before from the cemetery, laying on the floor with a kitchen knife, staring at the knife. James reintroduces himself to the girl as she replies her name is Angela. It's all the same. It's easier to run, Angela states. James is stating he does not anything like her. He is different. But then, of course, her replying is that she's feeling uncomfortable. She feels lost, and that she's asking if she herself is wanting to continue on. She is herself feeling depressing, having lots of forms of depression. He tells her that he's been looking for his wife, even though his wife has been dead for 3 years. Angela, of course, herself gets up off the floor and then states that she needs to look for her mother. As she does, ready to leave, James asks for her the knife, to saying that he could take it from her. If she does have it, she doesn't know what she would do. When he tries to approach her to take the knife, she immediately screams in fear, pulling the knife on James, then immediately apologizing, placing the knife back on the counter and leaving the room. You, of course, then next, after you've left the room, come across a moth puzzle. Now, this one I did not understand what the hell this was about. So, I mean, remake-wise, what was the moth puzzle about?
So there's a object in the middle of the room, and it has like a code that you need, and there's a certain amount, like there's I think 4 types of moths, and you count how many of each moth type there are, and then the pattern of the moth is the placement of the number, I think.
So basically it's basically a math code where each of the symbols on the back of the moth's wings equals something or other. and you have to figure out the code with these math problems like circle plus triangle equals the answer, and you have to look at the multitude of different moths and the patterns on their wings that correspond to those shapes and numbers, and use that to figure out the code.
Yeah,
And it's a little sinister too because it does count halves. Because I believe there's like there's like a case.
moth.
Yeah, there's like moths with some wings torn off, and like you have to take them as like halves instead of like full numbers and shit. So.
And is that same difficulty apply to the remake? Because like in the original, again, depending on the difficulty you play, the puzzles will be a lot more difficult depending on the difficulty.
Yeah. Okay. It's the same. There's different outcomes depending on the difficulty you're playing on.
Okay.
And I think some puzzles, if you're playing on the hardest difficulty, it actually is randomly generated so that you couldn't look up the code if you wanted to.
Okay. So
because I know. Well, sorry, I guess we'll get there later. Because I will say you are able, at least on medium difficulty, some puzzles you could brute force if you really wanted to.
Okay. And so once you have completed the moth puzzle and then getting her through a door, this door then takes you to a boss fight where you're confronted with the Pyramid Head. The Pyramid Head, you enter the room confronting with him and his new and infamous giant cleaver, picks up his weapon and comes towards you. You are now in a room surrounded by cages, avoiding his slashes from his giant blade, much faster than the original with interesting music, and the sounds like sort of like club music. It was different. I don't recall the music being anything like it was in this one. It was actually kind of cool. Yeah, it was I was like, wow, this is different, but okay, I'm interested. So once you're battling with him, firing rounds, avoiding his hits, a siren alarm is then sounded. He then, of course, stops the fight and then tends to walk through double door, leaving the area. Once you have then, of course, exited the door that he left, you are now outside in the west-south Vale. So now that you ended your fight with the Pyramid Head, what would you say is different about the Woodside apartments versus the Blue Creek apartments? Is there anything that you noticed that was different between the two?
Oh wait, so I guess maybe I didn't pick up on that, but I thought like the Otherworld thing was just the same apartments, but that was a different place entirely.
Yes, you're going you're going to two separate apartment buildings.
Well, I guess I didn't pick up on that because, like I said, I was playing with my friend Tim, and that was actually I handled the regular apartments and he handled the Otherworld apartments. So I guess I didn't pick up on that. I thought it was just like demon plane version of the apartments we were already in.
I mean, it's definitely more run down.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I mean, it's definitely creepier. You're a lot more on edge because even though the old apartment building wasn't exactly the cleanest place in the known universe, it was still just like all it was. That's all it was the dingy apartment building. But it's like, oh no, I'm in full blown demon land now. When you're in the other place.
Yeah, it very much reminds me of like Last of Us type of like this building is just fucked.
Yeah.
You know, the puzzles, there was a little bit more involved puzzles in that one. So that was kind of nice to kind of ramp it up a bit. And then there's like a lot of weird stuff, like James sticking his whole arm in a toilet full of shit to get like.
Between that, we kind of glazed over it, but back in the smaller apartment buildings when had to get the you were doing the record puzzle earlier in the game when James has to stick his hand in the glory hole in that bathroom or whatever, and just on the remake, the look on his face is the most uncomfortable, realistic thing I've ever seen for a situation like that, because he does not want to put his hand in there. And both times, both for that and now, though, he has no reason to believe that there's anything in there. He's just sticking his arm into the demon's glory hole because he wants to. I don't know, but his face is just like the most uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to do this. Just like, why are you doing it?
Yeah,
well, it's like and they definitely like that mechanic in the game because you stick your arm in a hole often.
Yeah,
and like. The toilet thing, I was like, there is no indicator that there is a minute hand in there. You just saw a toilet full of, like, to the brim of shit and just crouched down and jammed your whole arm in there. Like, maybe there's something in here. What if there wasn't? He's lucky that there was, of course, but it's just kind of like,
Man, I hope this
man.
isn't the Saw toilet filled with syringes.
Yeah.
Even though that didn't stop him when he found the first rusty syringe he found lying around. He stuck that shit right in his arm. He's like, oh, sweet heroin.
He's just looking for things to kill him at this point. So he's like, I'm trying to get out of here, but nothing's doing.
And there's actually a part in the third Silent Hill where the girl does the same thing, but she actually stops herself before putting her name in the toilet, and she actually breaks the fourth wall and says, "This is disgusting. Who would do this?" But she's looking at you, the screen.
Yeah.
Like, don't look at me. The game told me I didn't want to do that shit.
James is like, well, there wasn't anything in there.
Yeah, it's just his
Gross.
arm dripping with like 100-year-old feces.
Well, in the original, the moth room was that section where when you enter the moth room, I didn't know what the moths would do to you, but they were attracted to the light that you carry. So I just turned that off and went to the wall with green ooze spilling out of it. And then James just jams his arm in there, and then he's like, he does it twice because the first time he touches something and it scares him, and he does it again for some reason, and then he gets out. I think it is also the hand, or it's a key. It's a key to the clock, the grandfather clock. Because like it's a small puzzle, but for you guys for the remake, it was a whole puzzle. You had to go for the entire apartment.
It's just funny because there's no clue. There's like, look for the toilet that's full.
Well, I didn't even do that because, as you said, there's no indicator that there's something in there, and I found so many like overflowing toilets. I was like, I don't know which one to stick my hand in. That's
reaching in toilets in a bathroom. Like, sir, what the hell are you doing in here? Like,
I'm a plumber. Yahoo!
Yahoo! Yippee! Looking for your turtle problem.
Somebody shoot me.
Yeah, James just does a lot of nonsensical things. Like I said, I kind of forgive it because he's clearly just like, yeah, I'm in here for the crazy shit, yo. I know what I'm doing doesn't make any sense.
Everything that's happening is the worst that could happen. So that's why.
So what did you guys think about the scene with Angela when you finally come in there and she's laying on the floor with that knife? What did you guys think of that scene?
I thought she was gonna straight up kill herself right there, but it was like there was already blood on the knife. It was like, what did she do? When she right when she got there, whose blood was on the knife?
She's laying in front of a mirror, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of thought like that she might have cut her wrist or something. Cause again, like I've played the original, so I kind of was just waiting for like I've seen all of this stuff, and I know that they've changed a few things like puzzles and level layouts and stuff like that. Which, I'll review all that I guess at the end. But like I thought that she was like bleeding out or something.
No,
like because I know that she's sad, and I was waiting for her story arc to like kind of come and go because I know there's like multiple characters, like the little girl we were introduced to, not fully, but you know she's there, Eddie, and then you met Angela in the very beginning. So I thought like, oh, this is like the part where you interact with her and whatever this boss fight's going to be, but that didn't happen at that point. So
yes, and it would say that you also pay attention to articles in the game because that does answer that question, that when she has the blood on that knife, you find out what that is and what that came from.
Yeah,
I think that's part of my issue kind of with the game. It's almost like too esoteric because I believe, unless I missed whatever the fuck it was, or I just didn't put two and two together, because I was picking up everything I saw and like actually reading it, and I couldn't tell you. I mean, I knew going into the game that Silent Hill's basically like a state of mind, not really a real place. So everyone here is dealing with some kind of demons to some extent. Like, that's not lost on me. But at this point in the game, we'll get more of it later. But at this point in the game, I'm like, I don't know what your issue is. Like, exactly. I get you have some demons. I just don't get it. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, they really kind of like lore dump her information like way late game. So like it's not like it's impossible to understand what she's going through. It's just we weren't even introduced to it at this point yet.
Exactly.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it was a nice scene because I do like how James treats people. He does seem like a normal guy. He's just very middle of the road. He's trying to help, but he's also has to deal with his own shit, sort of thing. Like, he doesn't want her to kill herself. He's like, hey,
it's kind of refreshing that he's not like an over dramatic character, and I don't really think anybody in the game is over dramatic except maybe like Eddie, but like that's his issue is different in general. But You know, James doesn't yell at anybody. He doesn't like freak out.
Yeah.
You know, and
He's
very soothing and like, you know, understanding of like what he's coming or like what he's dealing with, kind of thing. Outside of stomping the hell out of every monster he comes across.
Oh, speaking of that, because of a gameplay mechanic that I actually dislike in the remake. So in this game, they do the Dead Space thing to where you can come into a place and there's already like an enemy dead body on the floor. But the difference between this and Dead Space is that in Dead Space, especially if you have prior knowledge from playing the game previously, if you already know that body's going to get back up, you can preemptively kill that body, and they'll still get up and try and kill you. But if you know that that's not that dead, it's like, no, that dead body's not really dead, because there's several times you walk into a room in the apartments and there's like a body bag. I remember specifically there was one body bag on the floor. I'm like, all right, Dead Space time, and I just whacked the hell out of it for like a minute. And I'm like, all right, I think it's dead. And then every time I pass by that body the next 2 or 3 times, I give it another 1 or 2 good whacks just to make sure. But sure enough, because it was scripted to get up after a certain point in the game, when I got back there, it just got back up. So I'm just like, God damn it, that's kind of lame. Like, I can't preemptively kill these things. Like, they'll just stay dead until they decide they're not dead anymore, which is kind of lame.
Where we're about to go in the Western South Vale, there's a very long walk to I think in the I don't know if it's remake specific, but instead of going straight to where you're supposed to go, there's a very long path you can go to get an item to open a place to get some like ammo and health items and stuff like that. But you've come across a lot of bodies in the road, and I recorded the entire gameplay for the most part of this game that I can bounce around for the video portion of this. And I came across plenty of people laying on the ground, so I'd run over there, and I didn't know this yet, and I was like smacking them and whatever, being like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure you don't kill me later. But when you get the item at the end of that long walk, they all get up, and then you have to fight them anyway. So it's kind of like, oh, I wasted so much time just like looking for the bodies to try to preemptively cover my shit, and that didn't even work. So I was like, well, now I'm just going to ignore everything. Unless, of course, it's the one guys that crawl around on the ground anyways, but you can kind of tell that they're going to do that because they have an idle animation, whereas these things aren't even moving.
Yeah.
So it's like a specific thing. It was like, this is after you meet Angela for the first time, because I know a little bit of what Silent Hill is. And I thought Angela in the beginning was just like that, like, wayfarer person that's like, oh, don't go in there, because like it's like a spirit or ghost trying to keep you safe and like direct you somewhere else to like, so you don't go somewhere to die.
Like,
but it's like
bigger in God of War.
Yeah, but it's just like, I thought Silent Hill. I knew Silent Hill was like of your own like imagination, depending on what you're going through. But when you like find like Angela again, and then you find all these other characters, that little girl and stuff, I was wondering, it's just like, are these people relevant to James, or is like there's more people here also going through the same thing he is? Or is James is this all in James' mind, and he's actually just beating up people from the town, like like all those people on the street? I was like, those are just random people, but James sees them as monsters. So I was like, I hope that's not the case, because there's monsters and there's also dead bodies on the ground. And like, who else was here? I thought this was supposed to be only for James.
Yeah, no, well, because the secret ending is an article of one guy murders an entire town.
I think they kind of explain it in the first cutscene, because when he's talking to Angela the first time in the graveyard, I forget what the words were, but they were like, why are you here? It's like, it just kind of felt like you were drawn here, and they both kind of like, I don't know if they say it at the same time or just like agree with one of the other saying like they're just drawn here. So I believe that everyone here is going through something personal, because if I remember what Jordan was saying to me, we'll get into it a little bit more later, but the little girl doesn't see any monsters in this town because she's not old enough to have the demons that the adults do. And I'm pretty sure everyone sees these demons in like a different light, because as far as I'm concerned, Pyramid Head only applies to James, and everyone's going through their own like, the people are real and the places are in quotation marks real, because as far as I understand it, Silent Hill is in like a demon dimension essentially. But what everyone is seeing, especially when it comes to the demons and the threats in the world, is warped to whatever their personal perspective of whatever their problems are. As far as I think that's how that works, anyways.
Yeah, and I'll definitely break it down a lot more as we go through because I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, you'll start to notice that there'll be some changes, and you'll start to find out why things are acting the way that they are. There's good reason behind it, and so I guess my final question for this area before we jump on is: so this again is your very first time you guys are actually coming face to face with the Pyramid Head. How do you guys think of that fight?
I had to do it over like 3 times.
I think that was me and Tim's first death because I told Tim at the outset, I mean, I don't know if bullets work on Pyramid Head. I was going based off the information we got the cutscene with him that bullets don't see. I mean, granted, James is being an idiot and shooting him in the big metal bit, but I was like, is that the game trying to tell me that shooting him is pointless, so it's going to force me into melee combat? And just the way, because I was telling this to Corey the other night, I don't feel like, at least in the remake, he doesn't have very good hit registration, and I don't mean that in a technical sense, like, or I guess like damage feedback. Like when I'm hitting him with either the pistol or the board, he doesn't. The only time he seemed to react to getting hit was getting hit with the board, whereas the gun didn't seem to do anything. So like I was like, oh, so I clearly have to hit him with the board. The guns don't do anything.
Yeah.
And so we just never shot him. And also because of that, I thought that we had to do something else initially to like, because he could, in the remake, he can interact with the environment, like break shit. And I thought for like a second I had to have him like break a like steam vent on the wall or something of the like to like open him up to damage, essentially, as what I thought I was supposed to do. But no, you can just beat the hell out of him as long as you have an opening, and then just eventually he just fucks off. And I'm just like, oh, I was taking that like that was way easier than I was imagining it was going to be, but that's mainly because the game's not giving me enough information of what I'm doing is the correct thing or not, you know?
I think I just ran around in circles until he left.
Wait, is it on a timer? Do we even have to hit him?
No, I think it's a timer.
God damn it.
Yeah, that was like when I was fighting him, I fought him normally. This is why I had to do it 3 times. It's not that I died. It's just that
kill him.
Well, it's like no, it's like because I was fighting him and that's where I started using my gun, and then I kept shooting him, but it doesn't seem like I was doing anything, and then eventually he went away. But it's like I was very confused. It's like I was like, but I don't feel like I did anything correctly there. I was like, but he just walked away, and then I looked it up this on the internet a second time, and it's just like, oh, it's not a timer. You don't actually have to shoot him. You just have to avoid him. I was like, God damn it! I'm not gonna accept wasting all my bullets on that. So I had to redo it again.
Bullshit. I thought we had to damage him, and yeah, it's kind of lame. Not gonna lie, when he's just like you're fighting him tooth and nail, then all of a sudden he gets up. He's like, "All right, break time," and he just leaves. It's like a siren means it's lunch break. I'm done fucking with you. He just walks away. Just like, oh, okay, you know. It's like that was weird.
Well, all right, so we'll go ahead and now jump into Chapter 5, The West-South Veil. So outside of going through and exploring the streets, going through and making lots of walking through different levels and such, you would then come across that little girl from before, sitting on the side, reading a letter, having a letter in her hands. James approaches her and saying, "It was you, wasn't it? The one who stepped on my hands."
Bitch.
The little girl firing back with rude comments, of course, ending the conversation with, "You didn't love Mary anyways," and then leaves, leaving James shocked as to knowing Mary's name. By doing this, you sightseeing the garden, you then, of course, come to a dock. You then reach a lady in a red jacket with a butterfly tattoo, black skirt, and boots. James is hard for words, stating, "You are not even finishing his sentence, she replies, "Do I look like your girlfriend?" She introduces herself as Maria. James states that he got his letter from his wife, telling the story that he's looking for her. Maria immediately comes up, approaching him, ever so lightly caressing his chest seductively. "I remind you of her." As we follow through with this, he walks away, telling that he needs to find his wife. They eventually gain together, and then, of course, you are now having Maria in your party. You are now going through streets, houses, motels, and then finally getting yourself through with multiple figures, lying figures that are chasing you. You and Maria both escape by going through a locked gate, locking them outside, but finding out that there are more lying figures in the other location. James, in fear, looks at a car and sees that there's a metal pipe lodged in the hood. He rips out the steel pipe, and you have now acquired the new steel pipe weapon. Continuing onward, Maria leads you to a red metal door. She pulls out a set of keys, unlocking the door, letting you gain entry into the building. Looking in, there's lots of neon lights, a bar. It's a strip club. Maria can stay while she's trying to keep you wanting to stay there by herself, again, trying to seduce him as he is fighting the urges. She offers him a drink and is asking him to drink, which he, of course, refuses and states that I want to go ahead and look for my wife. As they put down the drinks, she, of course, opens the door, leaving them outside. They come across a open area with a fountain of a statue. Maria tells you the story of a local saint who was sentenced to death to an island. A man who was madly in love with her sneaking out to bring her food. The lady would light a candle, helping guiding him ashore. After many attempts, a severe storm had came one day and took the men. Maria continues to speak about this, as then you hear a child screaming in the distance. They both get up and start running towards the sound to a building that they think is the right one. James climbs through the window into this sort of theater. As you're now walking through this level, you're starting to hear the voices coming out, not sounding scared, but showing of conversation between the man and the girl. The little girl being rude, talking about the man's weight. As he then enters the room, you see Eddie sitting here in his seat, eating a huge carton of ice cream with his bare hands. James is informed that Eddie's little girl is named Laura. That is what she told me, Eddie stated. As she had left the door, he is now walking out to go ahead and find out where she had left. Going to Maria, stating that she tried to catch her, but she left this way. You both follow that direction as you're going to. You see her in the distance getting to the Brookhaven Hospital. So now as you're now going through this spot, what did you guys think about meeting Maria for the first time?
Who the fuck is this whore?
Yeah.
I understand her relevance later, but like at the time, it feels like this is one of those games, especially one of those stories that once you finish it the first time, there's going to be just like a lot of like, oh, kind of moments. That's what that meant.
I still don't get her character.
Well, my point being is that I don't understand why the hell this lady's all over James's D all of a sudden. Because I'm just like, dude, I get Jay. He's a little handsome, I guess. I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, like, holy crap, you're like throwing yourself all over him like immediately. But I'm just like, so why the fuck is she like so fucking promiscuous? I guess I get that like you learn that she's basically a stripper, but that doesn't explain shit. And so I don't know. I just found it weird. Was all. I'm just like, I don't know who you are, and then she starts following you around for like a not insignificant portion of the game. And I'm just like, are you just following me? Like you just with? Are you my companion? Are you my Navi now? Like what the fuck is happening?
I was like, oh, you're following now? That's a big mistake.
Yeah, it's like this place sucks.
You know what I do to these things?
Yeah.
So
when I first saw her, I took like I was like I remembered a funny quote for like Jennifer Lawrence when she was talking to another celebrity that she had a crush on, and then that I forgot what that guy's name was, but he says like, "Oh, you look like my old girlfriend," and then she replies like, "Do I look like your new girlfriend?" It's like, so that's kind of what played in my mind when she asked that question to James. I was like, you look like I look like your wife. It was like, you look like my new wife. so it's just like something there. But I was like, I still don't understand her relevance. So I was like, I don't think she looked like Mary that much. But it's like, I don't know. She's just a character that existed in my game. As like, I didn't really pay much attention to her. When she started following me, I was like, oh, I guess I have to protect you for some reason. But it's like,
she's hot.
Well, I mean, it's just like, I was like, everyone's going through their own shit. Why is she going through the same thing as mine?
I think, well, as we learn later, but she's a bit different from the rest of the characters in a sense. But like, yeah, I'm kind of with. I would like say again. I'm just more confused at this point about what her deal was. As I was like, you don't seem like a person. Which wink, wink, nudge, nudge is kind of on the nose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess again, like most other things story wise in the game, I was just kind of confused.
Yeah, I mean, you start to just like kind of take things as they're given to you in this game, and then they just kind of explain it away later. But I don't necessarily mean that they're doing that in a bad way, because it's different when like some movies will explain away something, and it's just like, oh, I guess. But like she does have a pretty important role in the game. It was kind of strange in general. Like I remember playing the original and seeing her, and I don't think you've even seen what James's wife looks like before.
That's part of my issue, because I was like,
he like makes the statement, right, that like you look just like her or something like that, except for she dyed her hair at the tips, so that makes it different. I guess
it makes her wild and full of life.
Free. I do like her new outfit, oddly enough. Like I just like, I don't know, her, because the game came out so long ago. Like she had that like leopard print skirt thing, and then they kind of do a nice thing in the remake where there's an outfit in the closet, and she has an interaction if you go there where she's holding it and going like, "This looks nice, don't you think?" And it's like, "Oh, that's your outfit from the original version of the game. That's kind of cool." But
put that shit back.
Yeah, put it back. I thought she might have changed into it or something, or if she would ask you like, "Do you think I should wear this?" And like that kind of would have been a cool, like if you say, "Yeah, okay," because I know that there's multiple endings and stuff, and that could have been like a, did you tell her to put the old stuff on kind of thing for like an ending choice or something. But she does just she doesn't put it back. I was backing up out of the room watching her because I was trying to see what she was doing because she was holding it, and then when I hit the door threshold, her animation changed and she just like snapped right to me, and I was like, "Oh fuck."
Why'd you buy me this?
I guess you're done with that moment, I suppose. There's no other scripted stuff of her going like, "Well, it's too small anyways," and hang it up or something. It was just like, that's over.
Yeah. I mean, like, funnily enough, again, I didn't know what she originally looked like until Tim showed me, and I was like, I actually really do like her redesign. She's showing significantly less skin now than she was in the original, but I think it looks a lot better. This is one of those examples of like, yes, game developers, you can do that and still make them attractive.
Yeah.
Because when he was like...
she also still has like the leopard print like on the black dress that she's wearing, so it's very close to what it used to be, but it's not like literal leopard print.
Yeah. And like, again, I think you're right, because unless I missed it, we don't know what his wife looks like. Because I think I remember saying to Tim, I was like, "Damn, that's what my wife looks like." God damn, James, you're doing good.
Well, you have a photo of Mary in your inventory when you start the game, don't you?
Do I?
Yes.
I never checked. I guess I did.
Yes, you have a letter.
Well, that's just me being ignorant then.
Yeah, I mean, I never went to my inventory screen to do anything except for combine the bird puzzle, and then I think combined a lighter and a light bulb. And I think those are the only 3 times that you ever have to interact with that mechanic.
So since you guys have now gotten the steel pipe, what do you think what's the differences that you see between the spike 2x4 and the steel pipe? Is there any like difference in the damage and the swinging? What exactly did you guys feel about that?
I don't really I didn't really notice a difference in like enemy takedown or damage output, because they also introduced the stronger version of the enemies, so it's kind of just more of the same. You just have a different weapon, and you don't really toggle melee weapons in a sense. Like you just use that one. The only thing you can change your equip on, I think, is the guns, but like your melee is whatever your melee is.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it did more damage. I mean, clearly there was a reason to give it to the player, because James gives up his... Because the whole thing that led up to that was like this big, I guess, again, fucking Silent Hill being on its period, because sometimes the mist just kicks up rapidly. It's like, all right, shit's happening, and he uses the 2x4 to block some door to escape some of the demons, and you pick up a pipe, and I'm like, I'm going to assume this is an upgrade. Otherwise, why would they even give you a different melee weapon? I suppose. I mean, I guess I thought it did more damage, but I couldn't tell you with 100% certainty.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't use the plank anymore after getting the steel pipe because it specifically said it has longer range, but it's slightly slower. I had a weird issue when I kept using it. I thought about going back to the plank, just because of this issue, but every time I hit an enemy, it would push them back a little bit, and then sometimes outside of the pipe's range, and even if from me. So it's just like, it was just this weird issue where it's like I said, like, you can stun lock them as long as you can continue hitting them, but because the pipe keeps pushing them away, I have to stop hitting them and then just move slightly forward, and then in that moment of me just moving, they'll either scurry around on the ground or they'll get up and then try and hit me. So it was a weird issue that I had on my end. I've also never seen the remodel for Mary, and dude, I would fucking leave Silent Hill with just Mary. Fuck Mary. I would leave Silent Hill with Maria. Fuck Mary.
Rude.
You would fail. You failed.
I was like, I tried at least. That is an adorable model.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and jump into Chapter 6, Brookhaven Hospital. So you enter the Brookhaven Hospital. There's lots of doors, paper articles, old medical equipment, portraits of doctors and nurses. You're chasing Laura up the stairs to an elevator. As you walk with Maria for some time, she begins to feel tired and is placed on a bed to rest. James states, I am going to look for Laura. Maria, what happens if you can't find Mary? He ends up leaving her in the room, staying to get rest as he go ahead and look for his wife. For me, that's funny to me because, again, you're fighting these monsters and all of a sudden you're just like, let's take a break. I'm going to let you lay here alone and I'll be back. So
this dirty, horrible fucking mattress in this dirty, horrible hospital.
Yes. And then you will then exit the room and you come across your first bubblehead nurse. The bubblehead face, bloody white clothes, wielding a pipe-like object, short skirt, comes at you with changing and shakes as you're trying to swing at them. They will come at you from all sides. You will come to a room with a teddy bear and a chair with a bent needle. That will be a point that you will need later on to combine with another item. You will then find a hole in the wall that leads you downward. James then, of course, tries to climb down where he almost falls but catches himself so quickly and then regains himself to go down further, where you then, of course, get into a room with a recorder that's playing on the desk, talking about a patient that has no chance of survival, but he, the doctor, will do everything he can to cure them. You on the table, you first have holding a key with 3 opening notches on it for placement of bracelets. You then, of course, get yourself on the medical bed, a dirty sheet where you find and remove the sheet where you find a filthy bracelet. This is one of the items for the arm. Finding the draining hole, there is a neon green-like liquid that you would need the additional combination of the medical tube and the bent hook key to go ahead and retrieve a maintenance key out of that hole. You then go to the room with an empty pool. Inside the empty pool, there is an eye. Looking at the eye, there is a crack on the iris. You then can use your weapon to break open the eye to retrieve a blood-stained bracelet. Returning to the hand, you then will place the bracelets on the key, on the arm, which will then release its hands, then dropping the director's storage room key. You'll then go to a room with a bookshelf, rotating the books in a correct order to create the image of a fire-like beast breathing fire. Will then, of course, lead you to this room where there is a where was it saying you will come across a safe? Yes, a safe with matching symbols. This will then, of course, give you access to the roof key. You will take the roof key and go to the top and enter on the top floor, where you will then, of course, gain entrance to the roof. Before you do that, you can, of course, go to the woman's locker room and find yourself the shotgun. On your way to the roof, you'll find that there's nothing there. Empty, walking around, you'll eventually come across the Pyramid Head, grabbing James by the throat, picking him off the floor, and immediately throwing him through doors, which will then break through the bottom of a next level, of the lower level. This will then give you another option to go through with more further into the locations you couldn't go before. Double doors following through the lower level. Eventually, you'll find Laura singing. Surprised that she shows you anything in the max of their last conversation. She starts to talking to you about Mary itself, that she had met her a year ago in a hospital. James is then, of course, finding that what she had stated is wrong compared to his 3 years that she's been dead. He lashes out her and immediately apologizes, as the girl is now scared of him, saying that she had a letter that she has for Mary and that she would be willing to give it to him, but she has to find it. It's in a secret place in another room. James is willing to help her find this missing letter into a dark room where she lures him into. Once he goes further in to start finding, as she says, further, almost there, locks the doors behind him. He immediately bangs on the doors and tells her to open the door, and she states, "I will leave you in it," she states in a remark, and then leaves. As you are constantly banging on the door, requesting her to open the door, there is a thing that comes bashing out of the ceiling. The boss is the Flesh Lips. This monster is encased in a cage with metal-like legs. Defeating the monster, after you have defeated it, you are then yanked out of the room into another location. Finding the room is covered in chains, a locked box. Having a open key lock, a combo lock, and a keypad. You will have to have the 3 items in order to open this. Once you have acquired all 3 items and have opened the box, you find that there's nothing in it. James is now distraught and bothered with the idea, but after a few seconds, a drape drops off the item behind him. It is a statue revealing an elevator button in its mouth. Finding the button to the elevator, you place it in the elevator, and then, of course, then brings you into another sequence where an announcer is now speaking to you, asking you 3 questions specifically to options and things that have happened in the game. He tells you that if you get all 3 right, you are then given a great prize, but if you were to get it wrong, there will be a horrible fate. Once you have then dropped down to the floor, you are then being given the option that you need to find 2 items, a copper ring and a lead ring. These will give you access to the next room that will give you to a cutscene. This cutscene is going to show James and Maria having a conversation where James is now informing her that they're almost out of here and everything's going to be okay. She immediately feels unsettling, that she feels that something is wrong. As they continue on, the Pyramid Head shows up and begins chasing them. They are both now running down the hallway trying to get to this elevator. Maria falls. As she tries to get back up, James is already in the elevator. The elevator doors closes. He immediately tries to pry them open, but he's not able to. As she tries to make her way through, tightening through, immediately a blade throws through her chest. She has been stabbed by the Pyramid Head. As he tries to help, trying to find out what's going on, she's immediately ripped out between the doors. The doors close, and now James is at loss, drops and is depressed as to what happens, because now he's lost Maria. But now, as this has gone due, you have now dropped to the final floor of the elevator, exiting the double doors of the hospital to the South Vale Dark. So now that we've gotten through that part, what were you guys' thoughts on the Bubblehead Nurse?
I can tell you what my thoughts were on them from what I know outside of the game, because unfortunately this is already where I start to fall off, because I did the first part of the hospital and I even got to the point where you leave Maria in the dirty-ass room, but I think that's about the time I fell off, and then a bunch of shit started happening IRL and I wasn't able to finish. But as far as the hospital went, as an example of like, well, I guess I'll keep it on topic. I think the Bubblehead Nurse obviously is probably next to Pyramid Head is the most iconic Silent Hill character, just from a design standpoint. Because it's like, I would, but I'd feel gross about it.
No kissing.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's hot, but also I could kill me, but oh god, it's hot. I don't know what I mean. I like the design from what I've seen of it, but as I haven't seen it actually in the remake, so I actually don't know how they actually fight or whatnot. So Corey could probably answer that question. But I like them. I mean, it's like I said, Silent Hill has a really diverse set of monsters that just are all over the place. So I really like them.
Yeah, they're not overly complicated on their monster like design. I mean, it's just a handful that they're sprinkled throughout the game, but I mean, it's not like Resident Evil is about bioweapons and creating these monstrosities, whereas Silent Hill is just like creepy in general. So like the trash bag dude, you got the mannequin, you got the nurse, and there's only I think like 2 other enemies outside the annoying little stupid bugs that crawl around. The nurse is like a very iconic character. Everybody knows what it's from when they see her. I mean, they even did a Silent Hill Halloween Horror Nights at Universal, and like there was a Pyramid Head there, and like some of the cast members were nurses, like wandering around, and like that's, yeah, I mean, for it to just be so like prominent in pop culture from like a franchise that's got only a few games, it's kind of like she's designed well. And the way that they interact, I believe it's like if you shine the light on them, they get attracted to it. So sometimes you'll come into a room and they're standing in front of like a TV that's on or something like that. But they tank some damage, especially the ones that are like the ooze covered ones. The pipe or knife wielding ones, depending on which one you're fighting. The pipe ones I feel like are worse because they have reach, whereas the knife ones do more damage, but you can drop them pretty good with a handgun. And if you have a shotgun, they definitely don't like that.
I thought it was actually like bobblehead enemies or bobblehead nurses, not bubblehead, because after a while of moving. Wait, what is it?
They are called bubbleheads because in their actual design, their face looks like it's covered with like smeared like it's on a bubble. It's actually called a bubblehead.
Oh, I thought it was bobblehead because their heads like they like frantically like shift around.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah, because it is weird, but yeah, their actual name is Bubble, Bubble.
Okay, because they're like the only enemies that like actually managed to kill me. Because there's like so many of them and like some hallways, especially like the other hospital variant.
Yeah, there's some like enemy placement in that game that has like it's not terrible, but there are some moments where you're like, really, 3 of them.
For a game that doesn't want that. I'm pretty sure for a game that I'm pretty sure you're supposed to avoid combat, especially in the apartments. They're like a mannequin head and another one. And I'm like, I was in that part, like fighting them. I was like, God damn, how many of these fucking things you want me to kill in a game? I'm not really supposed to be killing shit.
Well, it's just like I try and kill the nurses, like all of them in the hallway, because like there's just too many of them. And it was like I leave and then come back, and I was like, oh, they're all alive again. It was like I'm not gonna fight them anymore. I'm just gonna run past them. If I get hurt, I get hurt. Fuck it. Because like at that point, I was still like beating them down one by one with the steel pipe. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. And then eventually it was like, oh, I got the shotgun. And then I try and shotgun them once, and then somehow I end up killing Maria. So it's just like I'm not doing that again.
So what are you guys' thoughts on? So what is your guys' thoughts on the new shotgun compared to the other weapons that you have? Does it feel a lot more easier? Do you guys feel like you guys were just holding off using the gun for something else?
My opinion on the shotgun in the game is my opinion of a shotgun in every horror game. It showed up, and then I immediately was like, yeah, this is just going to erase whatever my problem is. So I'm going to hoard all of the shotgun shells that I can find until I'm comfortable enough to where I can just basically walk up to point blank range and push them into the earth and then keep it moving.
Couldn't tell you. Didn't get the shotgun.
Okay. And so I guess the next one is that scene that we were talking about with Laura leading James into that room. What did you guys thought of that one?
That little shit. I was like, the second she said, like, I need to get a letter. And then she opens the door. It's just like, why are you holding the door open? You go get it. And then she said, like, no, the letter at the back of the room. It was like, James, you idiot. She's leading you in there. You make her go in. I was like, I knew it was a trap the second she held the door open for James. Like, don't do it, man. It's a trap.
He's like, I know it's a trap, but what else am I doing? Okay, I'll go back there.
Hopefully this will kill me.
Yeah.
So now that we're in that part, what do you guys think of the design of the flesh lips, that boss? What do you guys think of that?
Very disturbing.
Definitely a weird like creature, because it's just the cage. He wasn't that hard of a boss fight. I kind of just hit it with a pipe every once in a while. Kind of.
You hit the flesh lip with the pipe?
Yeah.
I was told to use the shotgun.
Well, I mean, I shot it a few times, but like you can kind of dance around it and hit it with the pipe and then move on. So you just kind of poke it and run across the room.
I'm assuming you couldn't hit it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, like because it's a cage. I don't think it's like as cool as like the nurse or Pyramid Head. It was just more of a oh, okay, here we go. It has like the weirdness of it, of course, underneath, but you don't really see it or interact. I don't know, like the camera angle, I suppose, when you're fighting it in the original versus like what I'm seeing, but it's just like somebody's cage hanging out of the ceiling, and I'm just pinataing it.
I guess the pipe would be able to reach it now I think about it, but it was like I didn't want to risk because like I had to fight two of them and then a third one after they were both dead. So it's just like I'm just gonna try and survive this first phase as long as possible.
I can tell you, I hate the fucking name.
Yeah,
That name's not okay.
This is not what I ordered.
Yeah. Flesh lips? Ugh. Flesh lips. I hate it.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into Chapter 7. Just letting everybody know, Chapter 7 and 8 are quite short, just because, again, these are on your ways to, like, the main parts, but since they are required to make your way to the next spot, this is going to be just something we're going to do. So, Chapter 7 is South Vale, the Dark. So, after you have left the hospital, you are now entering outside where it is completely dark. Hard to see, lots of areas surrounding you as you're going through the town. You're going through department stores, and then you're coming across a payphone that is ringing. You pick up the phone, no sound. It's just static. James hangs up the phone and continues pressing on. You run into Angela again, but this time again she's now telling you that she's looking for her mama. She has this tone, she's talking as if she's a child. You're conflicted with what's going on and asks if she's seen a little girl. This immediately sparks something in her head where she immediately becomes fearful of James and states, "You shouldn't have come here," screaming, and then runs away. James is confused and then, of course, continues on. You must continue finding the Historical Society. The Historical Society is a knowing looking like place where you have anything with historical features. So for this one, what is your guys' thoughts on the dark version of South Vale?
Now they have the nurses scattered around, right?
Yes, they're scattered all over the place, and it's hard to see, and you're trying to make your way back. Yeah, everything's just in the way, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like how the town itself is just devolving into just pure gross, like, chaos. So it kind of really makes you feel like you're progressing deeper into the, like, madness. And so it's, a lot of work to make an entire set of things multiple times, and it's kind of nice to walk around Silent Hill, seeing it like in the movie when the paint like peels up off the wall and it changes to like the hell mode, I guess. So it's kind of cool to see that. I kind of wanted to see that happening during gameplay, but they kind of just hide it in zones where it's like, you're in the hospital, then you get to the hell version of the hospital and go through some more puzzles before you get out here. But it's just like everything is tetanus, everything is rusty.
So what would you say? Go ahead.
It was just a joke. I was like, Corey's like, it's nice to walk around Silent Hill, said nobody ever.
Yeah. And so I guess my next question now is, there was that quick scene again that you had with Angela. Again, it was just like it was like a kind of a conversation. He was just trying to talk that he was looking for a little girl. And then immediately she just freaked out and then started talking about like she sees something in James and then runs off. What did you guys think of that scene?
God,
the lore that you're going to get. It makes more sense that she sees him as like an imposing figure, even though he's, you know, basically trying to comfort her. But, you know, again, it's kind of like you're led to make an assumption of what might be wrong with her, but you're hoping that you're wrong, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really think too much of it. It was like, oh, she's just crazy like everyone else, including me. It was like, so I just played it off without really much thought.
I mean, she's made it this way.
You all like hold each other's arms and we're off to see the wizard. You just start kicking your legs.
Pyramid Head's the third guy on the end.
Yeah, swinging his giant cleaver.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into Chapter 8. Again, another short one, the Historical Society. Historical Society is a location that has a bunch of historical books, portraits, glass cases, and cabinets. You're able to see yourself bunches of pictures like the Lady of the Light, the Little Baroness, waterfront landscapes, and of course the Pyramid Head. You'll then, of course, find a dark stairway that you will descend down. And I had gotten the time for myself. I timed it, so it literally took me, or the person that was actually running, 1 minute and 12 seconds real time to go downstairs. Being at the lower level, you go through metal doors, a dark hole in the floor. James is confused as to what's going on, but then, of course, gains up his courage and jumps through the hole. Going into a sewer-like area, he finds a locked gate on the floor. The location looks like a reversed side of how the world is, the ground being at the top, and you are now trying to look for a key to open that gate. You go to a room where you find a key, but as soon as you grab the key, your light goes out on your flashlight. You immediately turn it back on, but as soon as you turn the light back on, you are now surrounded by flesh-eating bugs. You must immediately enter a code on a keypad to exit the room. Every time you make a mistake, you're getting attacked and you have to re-enter. It is randomized code that you'll have to put in to get out. But as soon as you are able to get out, you will then, of course, get to the gate that you will unlock and, of course, jump through. This is now the second time that James has jumped. You will then find yourself in a contained locked location that is called the prison. So now that we've gone through this, what did you guys think about with the amount of time it took to go downstairs? What was that doing to you guys when you were doing that?
I mean, I remember you playing it on stream and you're like, am I going the right way? Like, how long is this going to take? And so when I hit the stairs, like, oh, this must be the part he was talking about. Because you kind of go through that first area, which is basically no enemies, giant lore dump of the history of Silent Hill before, and then you hit this super long staircase, and the other part of it was like, how much farther down is James gonna go? Because it's downstairs, then he jumps in a pit of darkness, which, you know, ballsy move too, because it's like, I don't know what's down there, but I'll just hop in.
I thought it was
We've
like,
established this man does not value his safety very highly.
Yeah, I hope there's spikes down there. I hope it's a Mortal Kombat pit.
I just figured it's just like, next layers of hell, here we go. That's how I thought. I saw it. It's just like, oh, Ring 1, Silent Hill. Ring 2, worse Silent Hill.
Ring 3, Silent Hill, Boogaloo.
So, I guess my next question for everyone is, so you've gone through the dark outskirts of that area, the getting into the Historical Society, then you're going down these long parts of stairs, you're jumping through all these holes. What do you think that had to do with the story? Do you think that it meant something about James that he had to do, like there's some sort of significant meaning behind it, or you just think it was just him going through the parts of the levels of the game?
I mean, like it could be a nod towards like the Dante's Inferno is the only way out is to go farther down. Because that's literally the as above, so below statement that you would see in like, I think, biblical text, and also, yeah, like Dante's Inferno is the whole thing is he has to go all the way to the bottom of hell in order for him to leave.
Okay.
And now that I think about it, it's just like, I guess like going deeper into his psyche for like deeper memories that he's just ignoring. So that's how I think of it now. I didn't think about it then because I didn't really put much thought into it. I was questioning like, why do we keep jumping down all these holes? Why is he agreeing to it?
And for all of you there that are listening, as they're going through this, he jumps through more holes as we go. It's not just the two. I believe he jumps through a total of 4 holes, and he takes an elevator down. So he goes quite deep into the ground. I just don't know what was it really about specifically on that, but it is really cool to see that. My question for everybody is, the very first hole that you encountered, did you guys think that you were going to jump it and think that it maybe was a trap that was going to kill you, or did you guys think that that was actually something you had to do? Because me personally, I took a while to jump down that hole because I thought it was going to be one of those, you can commit suicide if you wanted to or not.
Yeah,
Kill yourself.
just like a secret ending or something, or but it is kind of weird because it prompts you to jump, I think, like 3 times before you actually do it. Like, he keeps leaning closer, and it's like, jump, and he's like, I don't know. And it's like, jump? And he's like, okay, I get it. No, maybe not. And he's like, do it. And he's like, all right, here we go.
He looks at the screen.
I question it. Yeah, it's like, please don't. I would question it from a logical perspective, but because the game isn't Dark Souls or some other asshole game that loves to do that shit to you, I guess I wouldn't automatically assume it's trying to kill me, because if I did jump down there and it was like, lol, you died, I'd be like, what the fuck? It's so stickish. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I guess that only work is if you had those people giving you those signs like, hey, this is it was like a shortcut, and you take the advice and it's actually somebody just fucked you over.
Yeah, try jumping.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into Chapter 9, the prison. So, you now jump through many floors, and you're now in a location where there's prison cells, metal tables, cafeteria, visiting rooms, bathroom stalls, etc. Basically anything that you're needing in a prison. You find a dead body that's on the table with a gunshot to the head. Eddie's now talking out loud, stating, "You just put a gun to the head, and pow. He just came up to me. It was just something that happened. He was looking at me." James immediately stops him and says, "I thought you said he came at you." James changes and saying, "He just kept looking at me." Eventually, James is confused with what's going on. Eddie is just now turns and looks at him and says, "I was just joking. You should see your face. He was already dead when I got here." With a creepy looking smile, he turns around and exits the room. James now, of course, walks through that same door, and then you, of course, go through the cell blocks. As you're going through cell blocks, you'll have noticed that there are different creatures that are waiting in for you but cannot come out, giving you an unwilling feeling that you might be attacked but not. You've come to a armory room where you get your hunting rifle. Now the mannequins are now crawling on ceilings and walls with a new feature that they didn't have before. You're finding lightweight, heavy weights across to complete a scale puzzle. Pulling on the noose, showing basically on the events that happen in order. James pulls the noose and falls through the floor in an open area, which then takes you through a morgue where there are dead bodies. As you can, and also just for everyone, I guess, is in the original, if you were to look at the bodies, James is telling you basically that they have a very disgusting odor and is walking through the morgue. You'll find another deep hole. This will now be the 3rd time that James now jumps down. Then after that, you take an elevator even further down. This takes 47 real-time seconds to go down, taking you to the next section, the labyrinth. So my question 1, what was your thoughts on the prison?
What thoughts on the what now?
Yeah, you cut out right when you asked the question.
What was your thoughts on the prison?
Large area. I didn't think it would be that many floors. So, but at this point, I realized that I started making strides, and I was kind of locked in for the prison, and I guess no pun intended. And I basically just like A to B the entire thing, and solved it, because I was like, I don't want to stop in the middle of this puzzle area. So it was just like, it felt like I was just on a mission to get to the labyrinth area, because I think I played straight through the prison and the labyrinth before I saved it for that session. So this was like a very long puzzle solving part of the game, but the puzzles weren't that complicated. It was more about just like, pull this lever to run over here and push that button to run over here and flip that switch to run over here, and and that's kind of how the prison felt to me. It was a lot of walking, and those crawly dudes were kind of a pain in the ass because they can just scoot up the wall really quick, and then you don't see them, and then they'll jump down on you. And because of the way they attack, they kind of land behind you, and then you're turning around trying to find it, but it's already climbed back up the wall. And so it's like killing them when they're attacking you is kind of hard. You kind of have to see them first, and then you just shoot them like 3 times with a handgun, and they'll fall to their death.
Okay, so now you're talking about the prison. You are also talking about the shotgun, how that was basically making it easier. Now that you found the hunting rifle, what do you think the comparison between the two are? Did you actually like the hunting rifle more than the shotgun? Was there anything different that you liked about it? What was that?
I mean, it's just high power range weapon. But I basically used it a couple times, but I knew that I was going to get less ammo for it, and I was like, I'm gonna hold this thing, because I did the same thing in Evil Within, where at least in the second Evil Within, I saved all of the sniper rounds because I was like, what do you need to snipe anything in this game for? There's nothing that far away. So that's like the high damage output gun that has low bullets. So I just kind of held that off and then murked the final boss. So in this game, I kind of did this similar thing where I just stored all of my hunting rifle stuff, and then I used it for a particular boss that we'll get to that kind of used all of my ammo, which I was very surprised on. But I also then stored up more to use it on the final boss of the game. But the hunting rifle, it's kind of slow to reload and everything, but it does have high damage. I mainly just used the handgun and shotgun for the whole game.
Did it? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Edwin.
So it's after the hospital, I started using the guide, and it prefaced to never to collect as many rifle ammo as you can, even though you don't have the rifle. Because most of the time the rifle weapons are like usually the strongest, but they're the hardest to use. So it's like, I guess I can understand why, but it's like I don't really have a good grip on what the like how strong the bosses are, considering how strange this game is compared to all the ones I've played. But it like preface to keep those in hand, and then throughout the entire prison, the prison was like a little less menacing than what I expected. The hospital was much creepier.
Yeah.
But it's like going through like the cell blocks. I was really concerned because I didn't know. I kept hearing the scraping sound. Yep. I was assuming it was the Pyramid Head, but I never saw it, and I was wondering, do I have to stay quiet or something? Because like enemies here, I was like, am I not supposed to attack them, or he's going to come after me? But like nothing happened, so I was like a little disappointed, but I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, those sounds are coming from monsters that are locked up in the cells that they can't come out, but you can still hear them, so it kind of messes with you because you're thinking that they're there, but they can't get to you.
I mean, I killed all the monsters in the cells. It was like something higher up. Like there was a level above the cells. I thought that's where Pyramid Head or something was like was walking around. Because like I heard scraping, and then there was like this grunting noise. So I was wondering. I was like, I don't know what that noise was. I was like, is that the boss I'm gonna fight in this area? But nothing happened. And then eventually, like everything I was collecting, it was just to make this stupid convoluted handle for a latch on the ground. It was like, oh, here's a lighter, a wax doll, and a horseshoe. That melt the wax into the slot, put the horseshoe in, and then they're like, cool, you have a makeshift handle for like that metal hatch. I was like, I would have never thought of that. It was incredibly stupid.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like, did anybody find that to be like just that makes sense? Like I was like, what the fuck is this? I just did not see that coming.
I don't even think that puzzle is in the remake.
No, it's not. But I was going to ask you, Corey, since Edwin and I did in fact use strategy guides to get us through a lot of parts in the game. How did you actually use any strategy guides yourselves?
I pulled up a guide one time because I got lost in the apartment. I think it was the coin thing, because I was like, where are the other 2 coins? And then I realized that you could flip them, and then it's like, oh, got it. And I don't think I pulled it. I think I used it to see how many chapters or how much like progress I had left of the game, but I didn't really find myself needing to have it too often. A lot of the puzzles are very much just like put thing here, then thing happens. There's not really a lot of code-based puzzles outside of, if you're opening like a lock or something like that. But the answer for the lock is usually like written in blood on the wall or some shit like that. And then he'll write it in his notes so you can always check it. It's not something you just have to remember.
I mean, even though I haven't gone up to this point, I had the advantage of having two heads in one room because, like I said, me and Tim played through everything that we played through together, so it wasn't just me looking at everything. We always had putting our noggins together for it. We didn't have to look anything up, nor do I feel like we would have had to. Again, two heads are better than one sort of thing, so were I playing this by myself? Possibly. Because, like I said, I almost reached that point with the coin puzzle. I just decided to go back and carefully read the hint, and I was like, oh, I'm the tard. But yeah, other than that, I think it was pretty straightforward. I found it kind of hard to get lost in the sauce, so to speak.
All right. So let's go ahead and then continue on now with Chapter 10, The Labyrinth. So the location is a well-lighted, almost like a hotel beginning portion of it. It will then, of course, change as you go throughout. You'll then hear a female screaming, "Daddy, please no." As you get closer, you hear Angela says, "I'll be a good, I promise." You open the door and you're finding that she's scared out of her mind, and you start to see this creature standing up. It's the abstract daddy. A bed frame of two bodies on top of each other covered in skin. You'll fight this monster while also destroying these stand-F TVs that have static built in them. As you're running to each of these TVs, you can hear the sounds coming out, sounds like a middle-aged man speaking. Once you defeat the monster, Angela kicks the monster, and then dropping a TV on it, she immediately starts to basically go crazy. Angela is defending, just losing her mind. She's saying, I see what you're doing, after James tries to talk to her. Always out for the same thing with you. You're always out for just one thing. You could just force me if that's what you like to do, since that's what he always did. Angela begins crying, screaming, "You disgusting pig, I hate you." James trying to, of course, comfort her some more. Do you want to see Mary again? I'm trying to do that, basically, is what they had their conversation between each other. Angela then, of course, gets a straight face, facing James, talking about Mary. Then says, "Just admit it. You didn't want her around anymore." James replies, "No." Angela states, "You probably just found someone else." Angela's tone changes and immediately says, "I need to find my mama," and immediately runs. You're then, of course, continue on through walking through the cell-like room, finding Maria safe and is sound behind bars. James is confused as he saw her die by the hands of the Pyramid Head. Maria is confused by the statement and says that she's fine. There's nothing wrong with her. She's been here. And she is again trying to seduce him once more. He again backs away. And then she states, "I will come find a way to get you out of there." She talks about a special place that they had created a videotape. He's confused because this was something he only spoke to Mary about. She replies, "I can be Mary if you want me to be." Again, being seductive, he walks out, and then Mary states that she will be waiting for him until he returns. As you walk through the maze-like structure, you come across a mandarin. The mandarin with long arms, hands resembling lips on the ends of the tips, hanging and screeching noises, creating a screech that will then paralyze you temporarily, almost to sound like a flashbang. Once you've defeated it, you will then, of course, make your way through. You'll need to find a lighter, a wick, and then fuel to burn a sheet. This will then, of course, drop an object through the floor that James jumps through for now the fourth time. Going through a flooded area, you walk into a room with Maria lying on a bed covered in blood. You find out that she has now died once again. James is kind of crying, but quickly regains himself, gets up, and says Mary, as if he's like under some sort of spell. After much traversing, you find the Pyramid Head's giant cleaver laying in the center of a room. You now can use this cleaver to go through a hallway covered with waving limbs. The dragging of the blade screeching makes the hands move out of your way as you go towards the direction of the ladder. You then, of course, go through the ladder, and you're now getting yourself into a room that is covered of gravestones all over. Once you've gone through with multiples of gravestones, you see that there is a tombstone with your name, James Sullivan, with a hole. Now, James, seeing the hole, he now jumps through the hole again. This is now the 5th time he's now jumped through a hole. You'll find
Just like holes, leave him alone.
Yeah, he just loves them. You'll find a stairwell that leads you down to a bloody metal door. This is now where you'll see Eddie. Eddie staring at a dead body. How many times do I have to kill you? James asking what's going on, calling himself a fat piece of shit, as he is saying to James, constantly losing his mind. He says again, if you're pretty, dumb, fat, or ugly, it's all the same when you're dead. Points and looks at the dead body, fires multiple rounds into the dead body. Eddie lashes out at James, saying he's always been laughing at him. He then pulls his gun out on James. James immediately punches him in the face, dropping Eddie to the floor. Eddie gets back up and then tells him that everything's going to be the same, runs into the freezer. You then follow Eddie into the freezer. This is now the battle between you and Eddie. There will be meat frozen carcasses around the room. As you're shooting at Eddie, he is then talking about an event that happened where he had killed a dog. Shooting the dog, and then of course the bully confronting, he then shoot the bully in the leg. Laughing at the bully, saying that he screeched more louder than the dog. You will then be shooting at Eddie as these carcasses will rotate through the room, creating obstacles in your way as you're trying to fight Eddie. Once you completely defeated Eddie, he'll then drop to the floor. You'll then exit the room, where you'll then go outside, where you'll see a boat. You will then jump aboard the boat and start rowing your way through Toluca Lake. This takes 1 minute and 25 seconds real time. Once you get off the boat to a nice and flashy look-like hotel, Lakeview Hotel. In the words on the board, a special place that sparks fires, that warms our hearts forever. So question 1, what was your thoughts on the abstract daddy creature?
That was the one that took most of my ammo. His design is crazy now that you kind of know what's like her was it Angela's like backstory of what happened and like her abusive father and like he would get drunk and like, you know, basically molest her and stuff like that. So it's like the physical representation of being trapped under the blanket with like an abuser. It's like, God, it's probably the most unsettling creature design in the game. And like the fight itself was not complicated, but it is a long fight. So I was like, damn, I am running out of bullets, guys. You gotta figure this shit out soon.
What about you, Edwin?
Yeah, it was definitely the most disturbing thing about the entire game was just that section. It was like I was running. It was like why it was like that. It was like yeah, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, it's like maybe James's issue isn't as bad.
It was like now I just feel more sorry for Angela than James.
Yeah, and then again, what I was talking about before, which I didn't want to bring on until just now, is when you're playing the game, it is important to read those articles because you will actually find an article talking about a lumberman and his actual full name, which is the same last name as Angela. That's actually her father. You find out that she actually killed her father with a butcher knife, stabbing him in the neck multiple times, killing him. And this was based upon the events that she was dealing with, that trauma. So she ended up taking his life.
Yeah, it was like Thing is like the game doesn't tell you about like what you can interact with. So there was a bloody newspaper on the ground in front of the door before you enter the boss fight. I was like, if the guy didn't tell me that I can fucking read that, then I wouldn't have seen it. Because like along with like a bunch of other stuff that I probably did miss in the first half of the game because it was just me playing. But it's like that fight wasn't too terrible. He did get me a few times, but he didn't kill me because I was just blasting him with a shotgun until he died. But yeah, I only saw that one article and then the one in the trash chute in the beginning. If there was any more articles than that, I did not read them. So if there was an article for the girl, Mary, or Eddie, I don't know anything about them.
No, those are basically just him talking about those events. Like I said, he tells you about that at the end when you're fighting him, that he tells about the issue that he has, because if you're paying attention to Eddie, he comes off as like a very innocent person being picked on or something in that sense. And eventually, as you start going throughout it, you start visiting him more and more. He starts changing. He becomes more honest, and you start to see he is kind of like a psychopath, where he's starting to lose his mind in a way that he actually enjoys killing people or shooting things to see people suffer, rather than being the innocent person that he was in the past that you saw before. So he starts to like slowly change, and you start to see the real dark side of him as he goes, because of being bullied, and it just eventually took over to the point where he just wants everyone to suffer like he did.
Oh, I just assumed that was like that there were newspaper articles throughout the game that gave information or lore on each of the characters, and it wasn't just Angela for that one section, and I just missed it. But it's like because it's like what Eddie says, like from his perspective. I thought it was like there was like some type of information like from the outside perspective, like like dog killed by chubby kid in this game after all this stuff. I don't know. I was like, I don't know.
Damn, even newspaper articles are making fun of him.
I mean, it's just like it's just like a very like bland description, but it's like I thought it was like there was like newspaper for like lore they had to go look for, but it's like I obviously didn't go for any of them. Again, I would have missed Angela's if it wasn't for the guide.
Yeah,
but the fight with Eddie is like it said it's like, oh, you can use a butcher knife if you time it well enough, but it's like just use the gun. Just do that. Just like fight fire with fire. Who
you
cares?
can stab him with a butter knife, or you can bring out your 50 caliber sniper rifle. I'm not telling you which one to do, but one of these is better.
I was like, well, if you're running low on ammo, it's just like time it with the giant knife.
I think analyzing the knife from Angela 2 is like one of the triggers to get you towards a different ending as well. But yeah, that Eddie fight, I didn't like. I really wanted to kill him because he's just such a shitty character, like a shitty person.
I was like, well, I was actually waiting for this moment to ask this question. So, like, were those dead bodies everywhere? Were you just like taking a glimpse into Eddie's world, or were those actual people that were in Silent Hill at the same time James was?
I think it might have been Eddie's vision because of Angela's vision. You kind of get a glimpse of that later.
Yes, So in Silent Hill, there's different ways of how things can I guess mold into each other. So as you're seeing things as in James's view, what Angela or Eddie sees is not going to be exactly the same. So you might actually be an abstract Eddie based on what you think of what she's feeling, and she might be seeing him completely different. But this is what your view is and what you're seeing based on your trauma and hers. But they bleed into each other, so you kind of see these creatures come to life. So it's like,
oh, that's why it's called abstract.
Yeah. So it's like,
okay.
So yeah,
it makes a lot of sense, honestly, because of like when you first meet Eddie, he's throwing up. There's that gross thing in the fridge, which, like, you know, he's obviously has insecurities about like weight and stuff like that because he's being bullied. You find him eating pizza, and it's like, well, where did he get that from, kind of thing. And like for remake, you know, he's eating the ice cream, and you know, he's very aggressive. He lashes out at you when you offer to have him follow, and he's like, now you want to help me, kind of thing. And you know, it's like he's very hostile, but
to be fair, she's hot and you're gross.
Yeah. She's not covered in freaking poo like ice cream. I was trying to find an image just now to see if the grave site that Angela is at, if that actually is her mom or if it's him, and you discover that she's at her father's grave. But I think she's just kind of standing in the graveyard.
Yeah. And so since we got to that point, again, in the original, the Pyramid Head's giant cleaver is optional to find, kind of like, you know, like a hidden Easter egg kind of deal. But it looked like in the remake that you needed that weapon in order to go forward. Is that true?
Yeah, but you lose it. Okay. You use it as a key item to walk down the crazy wall, like grab-ass walls, and then you put it down because it's too heavy for you to pick up, and it kind of shows you how strong Pyramid Head is because he wields that thing so nonchalantly. But I mean, you're dragging it. And it's really, honestly, like I understand the symbolism of it, but it's like the control part of that for the remake is like it just felt boring because it's so heavy, and it's like I get it. I have to walk this whole thing dragging this stupid weight of my past, I guess, and but it literally makes it hard to walk forward because he has to take a step, so you have to build momentum. So if you go to turn, you have to stop moving.
And what about you, Edwin? What did you think? Did you actually find the Pyramid Head's giant cleaver?
Yeah, it was like, and the guide said it was like you don't need it, but it's cool to have because it's like, oh, it's the weapon of the iconic enemy.
Cleaver.
Yeah, so like I was trying to use it. That is how I finished off Eddie because it's just like I just wanted to use it, and then that's how I ended the final boss as well.
What do you got?
Like,
what do you got there, James?
A knife.
A smoothie.
Yeah. Beats him. All right.
Also, again, Bruce James could have just like ripped doors off its hinges, so if he had so chosen, but he just doesn't want to, carrying that and swinging that huge thing around.
Hell yeah! No, that should be easy for him. So now we're gonna go ahead and jump into Chapter 11, the Lakeview Hotel. So again, this is a nice hotel with furniture, but it's covered in sheets. Looks like it's been out of use for quite some time. You hear off-key sounds from a piano. Laura comes out, spooks James. Did I scare you? Laura begins to get Laura begins to get closer to James, providing him with a letter. It's a letter that's stolen out of the nurse's jacket, Rachel, that they both had basically a grouping with each other. Mary and this girl were both best friends during her times when she was sick with the disease. Were basically hanging out with each other, and then she, of course, had a written letter that was taken by the nurse. She took it out of her pocket to be able to keep that for herself, waiting for the time to give it to James, promising that she'll be able to give him the letter, and eventually he gives James the letter, finding out that there's nothing in the envelope. James tells her that there's nothing here. She, of course, says that it was there, I promise. I'm going to go ahead and go look for it, and ends up running out of the room. So as you're going through this, there are multiple puzzles I won't get into, but Corey, if you want to go ahead and fill us in on that, you can. But, there's different things you go throughout the way. I know that the only one that I really paid close attention to was the one that you got in the original, which was the finding the three princesses, the Cinderella, the Snow White, and the Mermaid. That will help you go through, but there was also additionals to that. Is there any puzzles that you found that were, I guess, out of the ordinary for this particular level?
I mean, I don't really remember like the 100% like what the old puzzles were versus the newer ones, but I did like this hotel. Everything's like a hotel. It's like every room, every building you're in is just like a building that has a lot of rooms in it. But this place is less linear because you have to get the three things for the music box puzzle, and I think you can do them in any order because I just kind of found myself running around and grabbing stuff, and there isn't like a particular way to get all three things. Just because like there's a boss that you fight when you open it's like a mini boss, I guess, when you open the fireplace with the fireplace key, but instead of doing that, I was like, well, I didn't go down in the basement yet, so I'm going to go do that. And so there was like a lot more running around and discovering items and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of enemy placement in this place, so it's more about like basically finding as many heal items and as many bullets as you can for like what's coming. And then also, I didn't really understand the significance of a few of the things, but there was a lot more of those like object point of interests where you don't collect anything, you just kind of look at it and it plays like this is an important thing, look at this, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's like Mary's medical records, but you don't get to read them, and it's kind of hinting that you're getting close to the important part of the game. But the layout of the building and stuff just looked really cool, and then it goes into like the hell mode. But it's like All the puzzles were pretty interesting. There was the Hercules puzzle where you got to get the books and you put them on the shelf in order in which the painting behind you has them, but it's kind of flipped because of whatever the angle is. So there's a little bit of thinking, but nothing like super crazy, like difficult to solve.
I have absolutely no idea what puzzle you were talking about. Literally, the only puzzle I had to deal with in the hotel was just the music box. Everything else is just like, find this, put it here. That's it.
Well, the music box has 3 princesses that you have to go find: Little Mermaid, Snow White, and Cinderella. And in order to get those 3, there's like a long series of events that I have to go do to acquire them. One of them is like go into the basement, but the elevator has a strict weight limit of 1 person, so you have to take all of your shit out of your inventory, put it in a locker, and then go into the basement with no gear,
right?
And then just run around trying to find stuff, and then
it was the same thing, but it was like that Hercules puzzle you were talking about. I was like, I didn't have to do any of that.
Because the Hercules puzzle opens up a wall that opens up a vanity that you take the broken light bulb out of, then you go find a regular light bulb, and you find a can opener and a can of paint, and you open the can, dip the light bulb in there, put it in, turn it on.
What the fuck?
And then you then when you put the red light on, you turn it on, then it reveals somebody wrote in like blood or something, deed done. Then you open the briefcase with the code, deed done. Then you get an item inside the briefcase. So there's a lot.
Oh yeah, the paint thinner. I forgot.
Yeah,
about
there's
that
a
one.
lot.
Get scratched out on the letter, and you got it, or not on the picture, and you got to use paint thinner to get to the actual code.
Yeah, but in order to get the light bulb, the good one, you have to find the bolt cutters so you can go out to the garden to go to where the fish fountain is to take the light bulb out of the fish fountain. And so there's like a lot of like back and forth in this one, which is kind of similar to the prison, honestly, except for it's more appealing visually, so like I didn't mind. And because there isn't like a ton of enemies in this area, it was just like, again, this was the last leg, so I played it all the way to the credits, and I was just locked in. Like there'd be a nurse doing her dance, and I'm like, move,
move, bitch, get out of the way.
I'm going somewhere right now.
I want to see the credits.
Yeah, I obviously was checking my map often, but like I was making sure every room and every door and every item I found was like used before I found it. And then there was the observation room, which is one of the secret endings, and I was like, how come I can't get in here? And I didn't realize that's the dog ending or whatever, because there was just like one locked door, but it doesn't tell you like that there's a key or something. I think if I don't have the object for it, they should have just like said that door was broken, but like New Game Plus it's not, because that's the only way you can get into it. But I did like the hotel.
Okay. All right, so again, as you're going through with multiple puzzles, you'll find your way to the employee room. There'll be an elevator that has a weight limit. Again, unfortunately, as you try to use the elevator, an alarm will go off requiring that you're overweight. You'll then have to go to the locker and drop off all of your items, making yourself completely vulnerable. So you'll not be able to hear anything coming at you because the static on your radio will have to be put away, along with your flashlight and your weapons.
Eddie would not be able to use that elevator.
And not even healing items. Yeah, so you'll have to go down this which is the only working button that takes you down to the first floor, which was indicated you before where the VHS tape is at. So you'll take this down, recovering the missed videotape, while of course trying to avoid confrontation from other monsters that are trying to attack you as you're going through, finding yourself a couple of heals here and there, but avoiding attacks as well as you can since you have no weapons. You'll of course come through with the 3 princesses, the Cinderella, the Snow White, and the Mermaid on the music box, which will then open the 3rd floor key. Entering room 312. You will see a standard TV and a chair facing the TV with a VHS lying on the floor. You insert the VHS tape that will show you the wife going through her days about the hotel, and then ending with a cough. The cough will then have a cutoff in the video, which will then showing James smothering Mary with a pillow. Ending the tape, Laura comes into the room wondering if James had found Mary. He tells her that Mary is gone because he killed her. Laura is shocked, yelling, "I hate you," leaving off and crying. You take an elevator to the basement. You see a room with a bright light glowing through the glass door. James enters the room and sees that Angela's on a staircase that is covered in fire. Angela runs to James, calling him Mama, and I was looking for you this whole time. As Angela comes close, touching James on the shoulders, she says, "You're not Mama. It's you." James replies, "I'm sorry. I think what you're looking for is not here." James wants to help Angela, but asks if she will then, of course, return with, "Will you love me? Will you take care of me? Will you heal all of my pain?" Angela then, of course, says that she needs the knife back from James that he's been holding from her the whole time. He states he does not say anything, but in regards to no, she states that he's just keeping it for himself. Angela states it doesn't change anything, and then continues to walk up the stairs. James replies, "It's hot as hell in here." Angela looks back and says, "You can see it too?" "For me, it's always like this," and continues to walk into the fire. James turns around and leaves the room. You will find yourself going through a wall with 9 red books for a save point. You will see Maria suspended upside down with 2 pyramid heads. James, unable to help Maria, one of the pyramid heads picks up its spear and stabs it through Maria, killing her once again. James falls to his knees, saying, "It's all over now. I don't need you anymore. I am ready." The pyramid heads drop down to the lower floor, ready to battle. James gets back up on his feet, and you are now battling the 2 pyramid heads. Over time, after the battle, they will walk away from you, pulling their spears into the ground and impaling themselves onto them. Taking from each of their hands a rusted egg and a scarlet egg, open the locks to the door. Walking through the hallway, you hear Mary lashing out at James in the past, also wanting him to come back, showing you the issues that it was going through during her 3 years of suffering with the disease. Going upstairs, you'll find Mary bringing you up to her, but finding Maria all along. James is telling Maria that Mary is gone now, and Maria is no longer needed. Maria, hearing this statement from James, states that, "I will not let you go," and then turns into a creature that is covered or encased in a metal cage. You must defeat her through battles and throughout the game, or throughout the level. And then once you have defeated her, she will then fall to the floor for James ready to end her life. So with the Silent Hill remake, there's 8 potential multiple endings to this. The leaving ending, Maria ending, in water ending, ritual ending, dog ending, UFO ending, and the new bliss ending and the new stillness ending. So with this, what was your guys' thoughts in regards to the Angela scene?
When she's basically ascends the staircase of fire.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like her story, I suppose, is done because like her main thing is over. So, she knows what she's done, but maybe like I don't know if like her mom was disappointed in her actions. I don't remember if there's anything that kind of explains that, because I know she's looking for comfort, but she doesn't find it there, so she keeps going. So she might still be in Silent Hill, honestly.
Well, actually,
looking for her way out.
Yeah, well, actually, in her conversation she says that her mother blames her for what happened. It was her fault.
Oh yeah, like so her mom holds her like responsible for the actions that the father took, like she was leading her on and stuff.
Right.
So she could just be doomed in general, and that's kind of what the fire is like she's trapped in hell, or her personal hell, and she'll never leave because of there's no comfort for her, and maybe that's what it is, because she just goes her separate ways.
That actually just reminded me of something from that notorious and infamous manga, Metamorphosis. It's revealing too much, but it's like that exact same thing happens to that girl, where the mom blames her for leading the father on, and then she kicks her out of the house, and then they never speak again. So it's just like, it was like, that's the exact same thing that happened in there. So it was just a weird connection there.
Also,
both equally disturbing. Yeah. I mean, it's like everyone kept talking about it. Like, I eventually learned like what happens in that thing. It's just like it's a weird connection. So I have absolutely no idea if like one was drawn from the other. But another thing is like that. I was like, once that scene happened, and then she left the game. I was just like, what? Why was I holding this knife for then? I thought I was gonna give it back to her eventually. I couldn't even use it in a fight.
Hey, do you want your knife? I still have your knife. She's walking to the fire.
Yeah,
I mean, it's clear that she like accepted death after that point, but I don't know.
Well, it was basically telling you that no matter what he did, James taking the knife to try to stop her from committing suicide did not matter in the end, because she was so destroyed with all the trauma that happened that she was going to be engulfed by all of this madness eventually. So there was really no saving her.
No, I mean, it's like, I guess it's like the same thing with James. There's like no saving him, even though he's like in control.
Right, and that was going to be up the next thing. So what ending did everyone get?
I got in water.
I got the Maria ending. The first time I played the original, though, I got the Leave ending.
I got the to be determined ending.
That's the good one. It could be anything. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, I got the leaving ending. Leaving ending being that you actually get with Laura, and of course he apologizes. They eventually basically get with each other again. They end up walking out of Silent Hill. The underwater ending.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The underwater.
You said Laura. Did you mean to say Laura or Maria?
No, Laura. The Laura one.
Okay.
Yeah, Laura.
Oh, so it's like you leave the one you leave with the kid and one you leave with Maria?
Well,
yeah,
Maria, as in you leave, but it basically repeats itself. She ends up having the cough at the end. She starts
coughing, and James is like, "You better watch this."
COVID.
I'll fucking kill you too.
It's weird because like he's just like, "We did it. We got out of here," and then she coughs once, and it's just like a night and day change where he's just like.
He's learned nothing. I still have the killer instinct.
Well, listen, I already got blood on my hands, so I said, I have no problem this time.
He's like, "Look, lady, you better not give me COVID."
and then the underwater scene, of course, is when James actually ends up taking his life. He ends up getting in his car and he drives it off into the water. You're actually finding out that Maria, when she dies, he actually says his sorries and everything to her. He picks her up and takes her with her, leaving the room, and saying that she's basically being put into the back seat of the car. And so when he's ready to drive off, he's looking in the rearview mirror, talking to her, and that's basically talking to the dead body that's in the back seat, that he's saying that they're going to both be together, and they both drive, and he drives them off the cliff, basically. The next question I had was, so that was a really big shocker, because I remember asking Corey the same thing, which was like, what the hell is on this videotape? What was your guys' thoughts when you guys saw the videotape, what happened?
It was
holy crap!
It was hard to follow.
So this man has gone through a whole lot for forgetting that he killed his wife.
He's been suppressing it pretty damn hard. I remember seeing it for the first time and was like, damn, that's... in Silent Hill 2 was my first Silent Hill game. I didn't play Silent Hill 1 until later, just because like I didn't really know about Silent Hill at the time. But seeing that the entire journey is because like, well, now it makes sense. Where he's like, I don't know why she sent me a letter, but okay, I thought I finished the job. She better not be a zombie. It was just like that when you get the Leave ending and you get to see them talk at the bedside, and she's like, you see how sick she is, and then she forgives James or whatever, and like he said, I hated you, and she's like, then why do you look so sad? And it's just like this really deep, like emotional part of the like, because it's just the wrap up, and you're like, did he kill her because he does say he wanted his life back, but she also is implying that she wants to die because she's in so much pain. But it's like, does he do it because he's doing it for her, or is he telling himself he did it for her, but he really did it because he's trying to like move on, and he can't do it because he keeps having to come here and take care of her. She's been here for a long time. She's not getting any better, even though in the letter it's revealing that she could come home for a little bit, but she'd have to come back. And he's just like, he wants it to end. because it's just too much for him to deal with, like his, wife going through a terminal illness, and she only finds comfort in that little girl that's there, and that they talk all the time. And at first I thought maybe the little girl was just like a manifestation of like the daughter that they could have had or something like that, but it literally was just like another sick kid that was at the hospital too. But that leave ending is really important. The other ones are good. The Maria one's kind of funny. It's a really short ending too, but the leave ending I think is like the longest one, outside of the rebirth one where he's like taking her across the lake to where the mentioned
pet cemetery
is. Yeah.
That one didn't make any sense to me.
Well, there's the witch coven of Silent Hill that they hinted at the love of like the lady that was banished there and the guy that was feeding her, and she shines that light, and so I think James is taking the body there to try to get her resurrected or something. But that's whatever. It's definitely not the weirdest ending that you could get. But the stillness ending is the new one in the remake, and it's kind of in order to get it, you have to get the in the water ending first, and then do New Game Plus, and then get the specific items to get it. But it's an extended version of In the Water, and it's just as like important where Mary is talking to him and forgiving him or whatever, but he can't live with himself. Like he's sad and sorry about what he did because it's so selfish, and then continues to be the water ending again. But
yeah. And so again, as we're talking about with like Angela and all these individuals that are going through all these different traumas, the bit more, I guess, understanding of what the Silent Hill is, again, everything is coming off. Basically, these creatures that you're seeing is what has happened to James throughout his life with Mary. And so, like the lying figure, if you're seeing it, it's covered in all this skin, like it's in a straitjacket, basically signifying that it's been locked up in the hospital, can't go anywhere, it's trapped. The same thing goes with how it's being able to spit acid at you is just a reflection of what was happening when she was in so much pain. She'd be lashing out at James, just yelling at him, saying it's his fault, everything's happening. It's like the time of this vomit, this poison that's hitting him is what you're seeing for the lying figure. And then additional to all these other creatures that you're seeing, like the flesh lips, the mandarin, they're all showing, or the bubblehead nurse, like they're showing all of that sexual frustration of what he's not being able to have with his wife because of her being sick. So you're like seeing all these different kinds of things that are showing what's going on in his mind, along with the abstract daddy, which of course we saw was the blending in of what Angela's trauma was in what he was seeing. So another good sight to note is that Maria herself, for everybody, is not real. It's a figment of James's imagination, because this is what he is trying to see what his wife what he want his wife to be. She's very seductive. She's very pretty. She's wearing all this hot clothing. She's very out there, spicy, like things that Mary is not, and he wants that. So this version is coming up all the time, constantly trying to take him and make him lose sight of what he's doing with trying to find Mary. And the funny thing too is that you're seeing the Pyramid Head being this bad guy, constantly trying to chase you. The actual truth behind the Pyramid Head is that he's actually the truth. So the reason why he's constantly killing Maria in front of you is because he's trying to have you remove the idea that you have. Right. He's stopping every time to have her blocking your way and getting you to the true fact, for you to actually face your fears and find the truth really out, that you yourself killed your wife. Because again, in the beginning, he's rubbing his face, thinking if things are real, because he doesn't know what happened. His memory is completely gone. So he has this figment imagination saying that he killed his wife 3 years ago, when in fact his wife literally died a week ago. When Laura told him of what happened of when she turned 8 years old, which was last week, he was confused by the idea that he said himself she was dead 3 years ago. So you're seeing all these things start to come into play where the Pyramid Head is constantly creating doors. Like every time you see him, he leaves, he breaks open a door for you to lead you to the next room. He grabs you, he throws you through a wall that takes you to the next part of the area that you can't get through. He's constantly trying to get you to the next part of the map because he's trying to guide you there. And then when you finally fight the Pyramid Head, he finds that you finally have given in to note that Mary is dead, you killed her. There's no reason for them to be around anymore, and therefore they kill themselves because they're no longer needing to guide you to the area because you yourself already know the truth. So you're seeing this play out throughout the entire of the game. And then, of course, the interesting thing about the save point, that you see that there's 9 of those actual save points on the wall. Those are actually signifying the 9 circles of hell, that you're actually there. These are all based on the different types of forms of things like greed and all that stuff that you're dealing with, and they're all signifying that in the entire of the game. So you see that at the very end when you finally confront the Pyramid Head itself. So it's actually kind of neat that you're seeing all that stuff happening. And it really definitely opens up a lot more for what the game is actually showing versus it just being a bunch of creepy creatures and weird design. Like, it all had meaning, which was pretty powerful.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was like that the events of him killing her was like a week ago. I was like, that didn't actually like come up in my mind because I didn't know like who Laura was specifically, if she was part of his imagination or she was actually there.
Yeah.
But it's like Mary dying 3 years ago is like, that's like when she started getting sick because the doctor said it was like, oh, she can live for like a week or 3 years, and I guess it was 3 years, considering that he was like, oh, she died 3 years ago, I guess, when she initially got sick, and then the 3 years of his hell was the amount of time they had to spend with her while she was sick.
Right.
And then he eventually killed her because like I didn't know, I was really lost. It was like, I don't know which parts of these people were real because I didn't even know if Maria was real either. So I was like, I was very lost. It was like, none. I either slipped my mind or it's like I wasn't paying enough attention.
Yeah, because every time you're going out into these areas, every time you see Angela, Eddie, and all of them, they speak of creatures, like they see them happening. But every time you see Laura, she never talks about seeing anything. She does have no idea what you're talking about because she doesn't have anything going on with her. There is no trauma with her on the guides of what the Silent Hill is creating. It's leading her into the world, but she doesn't see anything that these people are seeing because she doesn't have any trauma. So every time you go and see her, you'll notice that it's always quiet, it's clean, it's basically clear, there's no enemies, there's no nothing, because when you bleed into her side of the Silent Hill, you actually don't have any monsters to deal with. It's only when you leave the room that you're actually now fighting monsters again, because you're now outside of the save zone, basically.
So she's actually there in Silent Hill with James, then?
Yes, she is, but she's basically...
How does she get there?
That's the whole miracle life of how they do storytelling. It's very weird in how it works, but again, like, that's why I say it's like important you note that like Alyssa's deal, like she was a child, and it might have something to do with that, but it's like specifics to like the power and how it's like engraving people, pulling in with negativity, and creates monsters. If you have no negativity, no creatures are created. So I wanted to be able to close out with us and basically going over our ending comments and then what would we like to rate the game. So let's go ahead and start with Udon, Corey, and then Edwin.
All right, start with the guy who didn't beat the game. But I'll still give it a tentative rating based on my experience with it so far. But like I said, I only got up to the hospital, and it probably would have taken me too long to finish the game. But like I said, a bunch of IRL stuff crept up and kind of prevented me from doing it. Could I have played it while I was sick with COVID? Sure, but I wouldn't be able to remember jack shit about it. I'd be telling you, be like, I don't know, man. I just felt like I was dying. I felt like James. I was in Silent Hill,
jumping in holes.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as like a technical standpoint goes, because like I said, until I looked up the story later, I was kind of lost the entire time. But after seeing the end, I'm like, oh, this is definitely one of those games where like it's supposed to leave you in the dark, the like vast majority, so that way the ending kind of hits you. like a baseball bat out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, everything just fell into place and made sense now. I get it. And so story wise, I was a bit confused. Gameplay wise, at least when it comes to the remake, I was really enjoying it. It's very smooth. The combat is fun, even though it might be a problem. The combat's fun. The monster designs are really cool. The environment designs are very detailed and nice, despite the incredibly lazy attempts to block off certain areas to James. Just like, oh no, a small bush. I couldn't possibly just walk over that. And then his inconsistent strength of being able to knock down walls of a building and then just like comes into like a slightly ajar door and he's like, oh, I can't open that. I'm just like, dude. It did get me a few times, mostly jump scares, which again I don't really count as real fear. I do think the times where he has to stick his hand in the awful demon glory holes, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's creepy and gross. I hate it. But the puzzles I thought were pretty decent. Besides, I mean, I feel like the only time I struggled on a puzzle and I really realized it was my fault after the fact, it wasn't really the puzzle's fault. The puzzle was telling me in straight English I only needed 3 coins, but I was being stupid because I was like, oh no, it needs 5 coins. Of course it needs 5 coins. There's 5 slots. Why would it need 5 coins? When the hint's like, no, it needs 3 coins. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I liked it so far. Again, it's like, how do I mean, the character and story were a bit, out there for me, but between this and Resident Evil, I guess I still like Resident Evil more. Obviously, I think this game is much more well put together, but it's also a brand freaking new compared to the Resident Evil remake, so that's to be expected, really. Really good graphics. I thought the voice acting was really, really good. All the acting from all the characters was really nice. I already said the environments are really good, very detailed. Sound design was pretty good. Obviously, the music in the game is very iconic. I kind of like Legend of Zelda. It's not quite the same because Legend of Zelda is so much more, iconic than Silent Hill is. But in my youth, I listened to a lot of creepypasta stuff and like a lot of like scary story stuff on YouTube. And they will constantly use the fucking soundtrack from this game as like background music when they're narrating that shit. So I had already heard a lot of the music prior to actually playing the game, and it's haunting. It's beautiful. I would never listen to it on my free time because it probably made me paranoid. But I respect what Silent Hill is as like an entity in and of itself. Obviously, I've said before that the whole like it's very impressive what they managed to do with like the limitations on the original PS1 and how that grew into how the series like looks and feels as a whole. I find it a little bit funny because when I did do a dive into the lore, I looked into the lore of all the other games too and realized there's a whole like cult involved in Silent Hill, but weirdly enough, Silent Hill 2 being the quote unquote favorite of the fan base has nothing to do with that cult. I kind of find it a little kind of funny, but I mean, it's whatever. If they don't like the cult, they don't like the cult. But if I had to give it a tentative score as I am right now, probably at least a 7 or 8 out of 10 so far. I mean, granted, I could have said the same thing about God of War, Metal Gear before I got to like the parts that really started to piss me off. So there's always a possibility of that going down later in it. Maybe I haven't found the giant blade pillar of death that James has to climb up to go get Pyramid Head. But yeah, I think it's pretty good, and I do still plan on finishing it even after this, despite the fact I was unable to finish it for the episode because Tim has never played through Silent Hill 2 either. That's just kind of our thing now, is playing survival horror games together. But I do plan on finishing it, and I would have liked to get the dog ending because I did see that that's a really, really funny ending. It makes me laugh. Obviously, it's just a joke, but I can appreciate it when companies are still capable of making jokes in lights of things. It's very unusual, especially nowadays, because Konami's stock is so low in the guise of gamers, I believe that. But it's funny seeing them kind of get a W out of this. Everyone seems to really like this. I can't speak from a person who played and liked the original, but as a person who's never touched Silent Hill and had knew nothing about it, I think is a really enjoyable experience, especially because some survival horror games can be incredibly frustrating to play. This one's like really fun to play. So I would recommend it to anyone who is even like curious in the series. I think it's pretty good. Again, haven't beaten it technically, so I mean maybe there's some bullshit down the line, but as of right now, I like it. Thumbs up. 8 like tentative score about 7 out of 10. I'll say.
I suppose my turn next.
Yes.
So, to preface it, I guess, familiarity with the franchise. Like, I've played all of the Silent Hill games. I've been a fan of them for a long time, and I've played 2. Well, actually, it kind of became a fan of them after the movie came out. I knew that it was based on the game. So after I saw the movie in theaters, I went to the pawn shop. I found Silent Hill 2, and then I played it for the first time. And the game kind of was like one of those PS2 games that you just never forget about, which is kind of wild because of like that library is so huge. And then it's just like this random horror game is just so memorable because of how deep it is. And playing the original, it wasn't necessarily that bad to kind of compare it to other horror games around that time. Like you had Resident Evil Code Veronica X, and you had Siren, Siren is a little bit closer to the style of gameplay, and I think Fatal Frame 1 and 2 were out. So this one was very like serious and very mature for what it was. Even though like the other games are also rated M, it kind of hit like a more just human story without it being just like there's scary ghosts. It's just like this is a real problem and it's very depressing, and I kind of enjoyed that aspect because it was like a drama in a sense of less horror, even though it had messed up imagery and things like that. It kind of felt like a serious movie that I was kind of getting to be a part of. And going into the remake, I think they did a really good job. I know there's some complaints about character model changes and stuff, but it does make a lot more sense that they toned down the sex appeal of Angela's character to make her more innocent because of her backstory of being, taken advantage of by her father and blamed for it by her mother. Then you have Eddie, who is basically a hideous piece of shit. Yeah. And then you have, James's glow up is pretty good, and he emotes very well in his character model. So it kind of resonates well with the acting performance that they provide in the remake, because the voiceover in the original is very spotty, like very robotic. But the thing is the story was so good that even though the voice acting is robotic in the original, it's still very memorable. And not because of the humorous like Jill sandwich lines. It's just the stuff that the context of what they're saying is still meaningful, and they that basically holds all the way through in the remake. They don't change any of the story that much. That being said, the changes they did make of level layouts was refreshing because it wasn't completely familiar to me. The combat was fun, which I won't hold it against it. It does kind of make it less stressful. So, like, if you want to rage a bit and just beat something to death for like 5 minutes, you can. I think the world design was very well done. The set dressing was great. The level design was really well done. Angie would hear me when I'd hit like a part where it would just wind me back around to like a full level loop, and I would just like yell game design in the house, and then she's like, "What, is that bad?" And I'm like, "No, I mean it's a good thing. It's just like it's kind of fun to see it happening where it's like, oh, this is the loop that I get now." Okay. So the puzzles not overly complicated, but still engaging. The level design wasn't empty. There wasn't a lot of like wandering outside of going down the hall or the long lane to get the key item for something, but it's designed to do that because it changes the ending and gives you extra dialogue options with Maria. The boss design stuff, again, they're basing it off of their old work, so everything was pretty cool to me. I mean, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. I mean, it's not complicated. It's a really good story, and it's not really scary. So if you're looking for like a horror game, like it's not really. It just has horror imagery. The only jump scares that ever happened was like maybe towards the end when like you open a door and like a window breaks, and it's not even like you're getting attacked. You're just kind of like, oh shit, okay. Yeah. So that's I mean, yeah, 8 out of 10. But a lot of high praise. There is a couple things that I would maybe change with some of the things like
I guess I would call it more like unnerving and thought provoking than like horror, I suppose.
Yeah,
because there are
psychological horror, I guess.
Well, it's like, again, you don't really. It doesn't seem to me that you like ask any of the like. You don't think about anything of the greater story of this game until it's the end of the game where everything starts falling into place. Which kind of a shame a little bit, because at the end of it, it's like, man, James, you're kind of a fucking monster. You murdered your wife, dude. That's fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different experience because like Resident Evil is like a haunted house experience where Silent Hill is just like a mind fuck.
Yeah.
And side note before pass it to Edwin, the little fun trivia about Silent Hill 2 is that when they were developing the game originally on PS2, there was a huge problem that happened, and they lost most of the files during the process, so they had to rebuild the entire game. And that was something that they were like, well, they got a chance to rethink the ending and really kind of hammer it in, but they were also under the gun, so they kind of trimmed a lot of bullshit and just went straight into like the main, like the like point of the game. So like technically if we didn't lose a lot of the files, it might have just become a whole different experience because of like things that would have been in it that might not have even needed to be there. But at the time when they were doing it, it made sense for them. So the other rumor around it was that, and I believe they ran with it in an ad in a magazine, is that the game was so fucked up that it was an act of God to erase it, and that they finished it anyways. And so it was like, this game is like haunting, you know, and it's not necessarily haunting like we said earlier, but it's kind of a fun story to kind of bring up of like a game that almost basically was deleted out of existence, but through perseverance of the studio that believed in it, they still just wrapped the game up.
So it was No Man's Sky, except they didn't have to wait for the the 87th update. They decided to finish it the first time.
Yeah, and I mean they had to. It wasn't like, well, we have base meshes and stuff. They literally had to remodel, retexture, reprogram a lot of the game, and so it was like, well, this doesn't make sense anymore, so we'll cut this out. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like it kind of helped make it what it is, which is almost like their own personal development hell, I guess.
Yeah, it's their own development Silent Hill.
Silent Hill, yeah. All right, Edwin.
So, in the beginning of the game, I would have definitely put this in a much lower score, like below 5, possibly a 3 or a 4. But now that I actually finished it and I understand like the design choice and the story behind everyone, I'll give it better praise. It was like I'm not really sure if at least this original one, if I would consider it horror. I'm pretty sure other people would find it more scary than what I did. But for me, it was more of a thriller. I was more pissed than I was scared. But that was some of it, I will admit, is my fault because it's just the way I chose to play. But there's a lot of design choices and like just things that I don't enjoy about the game. Like there's no tutorial, there's no, regardless if it is part of the game or not, the point of like an objective is very lost. There's hardly is any. Like the map choices, like where like he would copy the map, was like, oh, go here, and like put notes and scribbles everywhere. It's like places you can't pass through. That's all fine, but it's like an objective of where to go, because there was the section after the bowling alley. Even with the guide, it still took me like maybe 30 minutes to an hour to try and find out where the fuck Laura went, because I could not find it. I went back and forth between the city near the beginning and then back to the society area, the docks, maybe twice. And I was only stopped once by Maria telling me, it was like, no, she didn't go that way. It was like, where the fuck did she go, bitch? I was like, I went to the back of the bowling alley 3 times, and I clicked on everything, and nothing worked. And it was like this slightly open gate. I was like, I already clicked on that, and it was like, no, click it from this specific spot over here. And it was like, oh, now I can fucking enter it. So it's like it's like just a bit more of an obvious like area to go towards. It was like the puzzle and like the area like running around, it's fine. The story is like a lot more grim than I expected. Like obviously like that last bit, I was like, oh, like the time placement and like who is real and who isn't, like obviously it slipped my mind. Like now that I fully understand it. The fighting was kind of garbage. Granted, throughout like up until the very end, I didn't know that James could stomp the enemies with like one stop and it instantly kills them. So I didn't have to spend 20 seconds killing everything one at a time. So like yes and no. It was like the fact that I was supposed to find that out myself is still like a little bit jarring to me. It was like, dude, it was like these things get up very quickly and very resilient, even to bullets. How the fuck am I supposed to know that stomping on them would kill them very easily? I was like, I do not think that James was like that strong of a character. I was like, he's not like on a Leon level who even can't manage the same thing. He has to use a knife, and even that doesn't work. But like the gameplay, the design, all of it was like it's very grim. It's dark. It's definitely not on a Resident Evil level. It's on a very different level, since Resident Evil is a lot more actiony. Even with like the remake, which is a lot darker and less gimmicky and comedic, with Leon's character change, is incredibly depressing. Yeah, as Corey said, it was like I didn't really like Eddie. He was probably my least favorite character. It was like it was like even by the very end, I didn't really care. Like I can understand, dude, but it's just like I don't
maybe
know.
If you stop being a fat piece of shit, people would stop calling you a fat piece of shit. I don't know what to tell you.
Shoot your dog.
I mean, it was like the fact was like that he took his anger out on a dog first, and then that's where it spiraled down. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So like,
no, it does. Remember, that's how serial killers start: is that they start hurting animals first, and then they'll start hurting people.
I know it's a dog though. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, I know you're not supposed to. It's a shitty thing to do. That's
I know
the whole point.
I know, but it's like his whole deal. It's like, oh, sticks and stones. It was like compared to Angela, I was like, my God, Angela. Like I'll like hold you like a child that needs caring for. But Eddie, it was like, go fuck yourself.
Well, I think maybe Eddie is supposed to be. They're making him so black-heartedly and like, you know, obviously evil, and like an attempt to show you about. I mean, granted, everyone's problems are different, and I'd probably say that his problem is the least problem of everyone's issues in fucking Silent Hill, but he just falls down the rabbit hole of just being like, well, if everyone's going to call me a fat piece of shit, I'm just going to act like an asshole and, you know, just become evil and just start murdering shit. And like kind of showing someone who doesn't regret their actions, that just falls down into the pit of evil and like doesn't come back out. Whereas even though James literally killed his wife, it's a lot more complicated than that. Granted, at the end of the day, man still killed his wife, but it wasn't just because he's like, I don't like you. He didn't he didn't drop Woody. It's like, I don't want to play with you anymore. It was like the situation was a lot more non-black and white, I suppose.
It's like, yeah, it was like Eddie is just like out of everyone else. It was like Eddie is just like the least. It was like he's like like he's jumping down the rabbit hole. He's the maker of his own problems and literally just making it worse. Angela is like she's out of her own control, and then her solution was like maybe not the greatest, but again, it was like the world was against her. And then for James, it's like it's pretty much a standstill of like what he what he did to the wishes of his own and to marry. Was his decision a good one? Is up to anyone's opinion for that. So it's just like in comparison to everyone else, Eddie was like not the most complex or intricate. So there's like it's not really hard to like see. It was like, yeah, he was just the bad person. It was like, so it's like you can't really like feel that bad for him. It was like when you have these two other characters you can feel much worse for. They're like I did not it was like considering how praised Pyramid Head was, I was like I expected to see like more of him, or him to be like in like after you a lot more often. But it's just like like in the very beginning of the game, I was like, I seriously do not understand the praise that this game gets. It was very infuriating to just try and get through. And like after the hospital part, it was probably the scariest part for me. But it was like I just wanted to be done with the game, which is why I started following a guide just to get through it. It was not the same reason why I followed a guide for Resident Evil. I just knew how much of an issue playing Resident Evil was going to be for me, considering there's just a lot of back and forth and inventory issues. I'm glad that this game did not have inventory issues like that. But it's like I just wanted to get through the game, so it's like I did not enjoy it as much as you guys did. However, I did see Corey playing the remake, and I feel like if I did play that one, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. I probably wouldn't have finished it any faster, but I like it more closely resembles a Resident Evil playstyle, which I very much enjoy. So I guess in a more like personal interest in game design that I enjoy more, I would give this game like from a 3 or 4 to I guess the same, maybe closer to Udon's, which is like a 6 or a 7, maybe closer to a 6. It was kind of hard to, regardless of how well this written the story was and all the characters, it was still kind of hard to follow because of the way the game was designed. And even then, it was still harder to follow. Maybe I'm just dumb, but even watching the videotape, it was hard to see what was happening because there was so much static. And the part where James like supposedly puts a pillow over her face, it was like I didn't even get what happened there because it was just so black and white and staticky. It was like it just looked like he just put his body over her. I have no idea. I have no idea what he's doing.
So it's just like, over her. Is this helping?
Yeah, it's like I don't know what happened there. It's like in the beginning, I assumed it was like all the considering how the game was going from like the first half. It was like James probably killed his wife, and he can't. And I was like, and he's trying to deny it. And and then it was like eventually, even after the videotape, it was like oh, I guess he did kill the wife. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I saw that pretty soon. It wasn't shocking or anything. It was kind of obvious, but like. The fact that it was like, oh, Pyramid Head is technically him constantly killing Maria and over again. I was like, oh, so that's what that was. I was like, oh, now it's all piecing together. And then now hearing you guys and Jordan explaining the plot and the lore and all that, I was like, oh, now the whole game makes a lot more sense. But the design of it and the gameplay still kind of sucks for me. So yeah, I'll still go with a 6. If I play the remake, maybe it'll be higher, but I don't know by how much.
Yeah, and I guess on my side it'll be basically this. I'll be at like 7.5 in there, just because again I was playing on the PS2 version, and again I'm not going to hold anything that I had received outside of the game is improving the score, because again, like what Edwin said, Udon themselves, like it's hard to follow. There was just a lot of these like things and signs that were given out there, but unless you really were like looking for them, like truthfully looking for them outside, that you would basically be able to understand it. So until I was able to do the rabbit trail deal and find out all the story into this, that's when I was like really heavily involved in the game. But if I was to say just the PS2 version itself, just playing off what I knew, I would probably say like a 7 to 7.5, just because again the game mechanics were really a pain in the ass. The storytelling was really hard to understand, but the music design, the character design, the creatures, all that stuff, it was really cool. It was really outside the ordinary. Again, they had some really deep background stories to each of these characters. I mean, Eddie's was, again, like we all know, is kind of but like the others that have gone through this crazy amount of stress or this trauma, it's really crazy to see how real a game can get with just saying these stories that could potentially be real life events that are just crazy to imagine, and this game brings that out. But again, unless you really understand and you're looking for it, you're not going to really understand what's going on. So I would say about a 7 to 7.5 on the matter. And then with that, I guess we'll be wrapping it up. So, be sure to follow us on Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube channel to be notified of new episodes. Rate us 5 stars if you enjoyed today's episode, and don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel. And for all you gamers out there, just remember to keep exploring, keep playing, keep listening. Until next time, this is the Mediocre Rumor Brothers podcast signing off. Thanks for listening.
And I want to say before we head out, because no one's going to say it for you, thank you for hosting today's special episode on Silent Hill, especially since I was out of commission and wasn't able to do it. I think you did a really good job.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never been able to play this game when I was a kid. Never finish.
Silent Hill! Hey, this is Corey, and thanks for checking out Mediocre Rumble Brothers. If you liked the video, please drop a like, and if you didn't, that's fine too. If you'd like us to talk about any specific games, drop a comment below, or feel free to discuss your experience with the games that we've mentioned in the episode. You can also listen to our episodes prior to YouTube on our Spotify. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.